February City Council meeting. Start with our call to order, then our roll call down here to my left.
Laura Hopkins.
Awad Iyasu.
Ahmed Hassan.
Jamie Carroll.
Whitey Bell.
And Mayor Ted Terry. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance if able. Thank you all very much. All right. Agendas are in the back, so please grab those if you haven't. If you're following online, we'll call out the items as we move forward. First is just the administrative section. We have one item C1 in terms of the minute approval, one from the council meeting on January 7th, and then the executive session from January 28th. I'll open the floor. Or actually, I'm sorry. We do have one item to add to the agenda. So I'll open the floor for the council members to add an item to the agenda. There you go, right there.
I move that we add to the agenda item G2 to approve a settlement agreement.
Second.
All right, motion second. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of adding that to the agenda? Raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, item G2, so that will come after in the new business section, so we'll explain that when we get to that section. All right, now approval of the minutes. So I'll open the floor for a motion on both of these items for minutes.
I have a motion to approve minutes for council meeting January 7, 2020, and executive session January 28, 2020.
Okay.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Any discussion? Minutes look good. Okay, no changes. All right, all in favor of approving those meeting minutes, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you all very much. All right, we have a special recognition this evening, and I will ask our city manager, Robin Gomez, to do this recognition, and then we'll do a little photo op. Mr.
Thank you.
Gomez.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, Robin Gomez, Clarkston City Manager. And we love these times when we like to recognize our employees. This one for years of service. If I may have Officer Hazlewood please come up. We'd like to congratulate Officer Jadita Hazlewood on her 5-year anniversary with the City of Clarkston.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Officer Hazlewood. We'll probably have you come up in a minute for a photo after we recognize our new hires, and then we'll come down there.
We also have for 5 years Mayor and Council Mr. Dan Defnall, our fearless finance director, although he is home ill.
Okay.
So he cannot be here with us, but we'll present him at the next meeting. But he's also celebrating 5 years with the City of Clarkston.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. All right, let's do our new hires, and then we'll do a photo with Officer Hazlewood, and then we have to do a council photo because all the council members are here this evening. And so I will call Assistant Chief Hess to introduce our new hires.
Again, another great time to celebrate and recognize some new members of the City of Clarkston employee family.
All right.
Assistant Chief.
So thank you for your time this evening. I wanted to introduce our two newest hires. They were brought on at the beginning of December. Officer Frazier, he came by way of Warner Robins PD. He's been with us. He's finishing up his field training program as we speak. I'll give him a second to introduce himself. And then Sergeant Bodron, we stole him from Shanley PD.
Okay, that's not illegal, is it?
No, it's not illegal. Not at all. Shanley PD, and previous to that, he was Clayton County PD, and he's also a general instructor, firearms instructor, so kind of fills a couple of voids for us. So, but I'll let them kind of introduce themselves a little bit further.
Very good. Officer Frazier.
How you doing today?
Hey, good evening.
I'm Officer Kevin Frazier. I'm originally Restate from Brooklyn, New York. Moved out to Georgia about 8 years ago. Started in Warner Robins. Somebody from New York in here?
Brooklyn. All right, Brooklyn in the house, one.
New York. Okay. Moved to Warner Robins, stayed out there. Actually worked for Warner Robins PD for a year and a half. Wanted to relocate, moved to Clarkston. Got in touch with usually Assistant Chief Hess and the Chief, of course. And they brought me along, and I'm happy to be here. I love the atmosphere. I love the culture. I I love the fact it's diverse, and I'm looking forward to working with everyone in here. And I appreciate it.
Thank you. Welcome, Officer Frazier. Thank you. Glad to have you here.
Hey everybody, I'm Robert Bodron. Chief Hess recruited me in here as a patrol sergeant. Started back in December. Prior to that, I started in Clayton County in 2011 and moved over to Shanley in 2013. I'm excited to hopefully make this the last stop in my law enforcement career. I've seen good things since I've been here, and I'm seeing improvements every day. I'm just excited to be in the process.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sergeant. Thank you. Yeah. And as always, as we see our new officers on the streets and our current officers, please say hi to them, talk with them. We're a community policing department, so we're happy to have you all as part of the family and part of the community. Thanks again. All right, let me get the council members to come down front. Let's get a photo with Officer Hazlewood, and then we'll do our official council photos, and then we'll continue the meeting.
Yes, you gotta have permission.
Yeah, I was moving, yeah.
All right, thank you all very much for that. All right, next item, C4, the Blue Ridge Atlantic proposed development, and we have our guest here this evening.
Yes,
Is there
Mayor.
a PowerPoint at all? Or?
Yeah, they're going to show a few slides, but just going to, yeah, go ahead, Joe. We're going to introduce Mr. Chris Eisensimmer and Mr. Craig Taylor with Blue Ridge Development to just have a brief presentation.
Hey, appreciate you guys having us. So I'm Chris Eisensimmer with Blue Ridge Atlantic Development. We are a community and economic development company with a presence on both the East Coast and the West Coast. We focus on workforce and senior housing, age-restricted independent senior housing. And 99.9% of the work that we do is targeted around income-restricted housing. We have approximately 10 to 12,000 units of combined experience across our group and all of our projects. And really what we're finding across the country is that affordable housing is becoming somewhat of an afterthought. A lot of communities and areas are continuing to grow, and public works and public service employees are having a hard time affording to live in the communities in which they're serving. And so we are, part of our business plan is to be ahead of that and provide housing, mixed income, anywhere from, restrictions of 40% of AMI all the way up to 80% of AMI. You may remember us a bit. We were in here probably 12 to 14 months ago. We're working on the project at East Ponce, which is the Vietnamese Faith Baptist Church. I wanted to provide an update with where that stands. I'm happy to announce that it should be moving into a closing phase over the next couple of months, looking probably mid to late April. But I brought a rendering to show what the clubhouse is going to look like and entail. You probably remember some of our pitch was the amenities we had anticipated providing, and I just wanted to show that we are fully following through with that and truly providing the amenities and the services that we said we were going to be providing. We're also going to be hosting, as we promised, on February 22nd, a community meeting for folks to come out, express their opinions on anything from as granular as color schemes to what sort of services they would like to see programmed in, what sort of community organizations you would like to see partnered with the property as well. Mr. Gomez is going to bring up the rendering of how the clubhouse is going to look, which is fairly solidified at this point. It's about 6,500 square feet, which is very large for an apartment community facility. Will be nestled back midway of the site. And then if you'll go to the next slide, I'll kind of give you a quick rundown of the floor plan of this. So when you enter into the building, to the right is sort of a multi-purpose room that can be separated by a curtain wall. We're in discussions with certain nonprofit organizations in the area in terms of potentially providing, ready schools, et cetera, that can be used in that room. Part of what will go into there will be determined based on how the feedback comes in February 22nd and what folks really want to see in there. Over to the left is the leasing offices of the manager and the assistant manager. Take one step back from that, and you have the community meeting room where folks can hold, residents can hold meetings. We anticipate trying to have some sort of first-time home buyer classes and financial literacy classes and things like that going into here. As you continue back, we've got restrooms. You can see there's a very large exercise facility, very large restrooms. We also have in the kind of center this very grand area, which will have a coffee bar, fireplace, sitting areas, and such for the residents to kind of enjoy there. Over to the back, I guess it would be the top left corner, is a laundry facility. And one thing that we're finding is that when you have families doing laundry, children are out running around, and it's obviously a danger to them. And in order for the parents to keep track of them, we've installed a playroom, an indoor playroom that directly connects to the laundry facility, which will help out from a safety factor. Going out the back, we have the pool, which is not visible on this, but it's kind of a terrace with a nice pool area, outdoor grilling facilities, and et cetera there. So I did want to touch on just the progress as to where we stand with that. We'll be closing, as I mentioned, in April and starting construction immediately after. The reason we're here as well tonight is extremely highly conceptual. I wanted to gauge feedback from the community and from the council on a potential project that we would love to try to work with the city on. This would be in the right there at the vacant strip of land at North Indian Creek in Montreal. It's about 1.7 acres, and we are anticipating trying to work on a mixed income with some mixed use project there. Mr. Gomez, you can go to the next slide there. So what this would entail would be the property is currently zoned town center, which allows for mixed use and residential, so long as you conform with the requirements in the code. And that essentially is exactly what this is. We would still be providing 3,000 to 4,000 square feet of retail space, and then we would also be providing approximately 4,000 square feet of amenity and community space on the ground floor, with approximately 60 apartments above that. This, different from the previous project, which is all centered around the 60% of AMI level. One of the requests from the council and in the community was potential deeper targeting. And so we have structured this project that will allow anything from 40% all the way up to that 80% band. What that translates to in terms of rent and income levels is at the one-bedroom level, you'll be looking anywhere from $450 to $800, depending on your income. The two-bedroom, you're looking at approximately $530 up to $930. And then the three bedrooms, you're looking at $630 up to about $1,100. In terms of annual income, what that translates to from the restriction levels is about $18,000 to $45,000 on the one bedrooms, $23,000 to $43,000 on the two bedrooms, and about $30,000 up to $66,000 on the three bedrooms. And that's based on family size, et cetera, that goes into that calculation. Like the other project, we fully intend on engaging the community going forward, assuming that this is something that folks are interested in. Would fully have a community meeting, just as we're doing with this particular project, to solicit feedback as well. Some of the things that are worth noting is it will be fully energy efficient designed. The other project we're working on is going to be full U.S. Green Building Council certified. And what we're finding, we're doing utility studies of all of our projects. And we're finding that projects that are designed this way have about a 30 to a 40% reduction in the utility expenses that the tenants are exposed to. And obviously that translates to more disposable income for folks on a monthly basis. Another thing that we feel is a positive impact on this project is the walkability due to the location, which obviously has a trickle effect down to mitigating any some of the traffic concerns and a number of things. It also is going to generate additional revenue and folks shopping around in the area who live in the area. People aren't having to jump in their cars to drive to the grocery store. They can walk across the street. They can walk across and eat at Kathmandu, go grab a cup of coffee up the way. So that's another, what we feel at least, is a pretty big plus for this particular project. From the retail and amenity space, we would hope to gain insight from the council and from the residents as to what sort of establishment you would like to see go in here. We would love to try to find a way to partner or bring in a local nonprofit or a local organization or a local business that would occupy that. We're certainly not looking to bring in a big box chain that's going to slap in there and have no vested interest in the community. That said, the way that we're structuring this from a financial standpoint, we're not making the project dependent upon the success of the commercial. So our goal would be to try to offer, particularly if it's a local nonprofit or someone, some sort of a longer-term contract with a discount on the rent. That would be our goal there. As for additional amenities, we're also going to try to design in some sort of a rooftop terrace area that maybe has some grilling and things like that for the residents to be able to go up and enjoy and hang out there as well. Talking about the potential negatives of the project, parking is a thing. It is obviously no secret of anyone's, lack of public parking, etc. Currently at 60 units with the green space reserved, we're able to accommodate about 70 to 75 parking spaces. We realize that is a challenge and a potential problem for this project. What we asked for on the previous project was a space and a half per unit variance. This one has a much higher concentration of ones and two bedrooms, which also further supports that sort of a parking ratio. In the meantime, in order to try to mitigate some of the parking challenges, we're working on securing some off-site parking where we could build an additional parking lot that could even potentially be shared and used by the city as well for other business owners and other parking in the area. From that aspect, we will also be cognizant. There's a good bit of trees on that particular site, and we've had some initial looks at some of the arborists that we use on our other projects. We would fully expect to be bringing in an arborist on this to do a full tree study, figure out what trees are healthy, what trees are not. Based on the preliminary look we've had, it's been determined, again, preliminary, that there's for lack of better words, a lot of sick trees on the site due to how densely they are together, and on that Montreal side, how exposed a lot of the roots are there. So we would expect to contribute to a tree bank or contribute dollars to the city for trees and additional trees to be planted to replace those as well. As for the green space, playground, et cetera, we would like to try to figure out a way where we could structure a public playground that would be available for this, that the entire residents would be able to use of the city of Clarkston. So in order to accomplish that, we would propose building out and paying for the playground to be built, and then essentially deeding it over and gifting it to the city. And that would allow our residents to use it, but also the public of the city. So given that, that's, again, extremely high level. We wanted to get this in front of folks and just get conceptual ideas and get feedback before coming in and requesting anything specific. But thank you for your time and having us.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, let's just take a few moments here. Any questions from the council? Any thoughts? We can. You don't have to say anything right now. I got one question about the February 22nd. So that'll be like sort of like a community meeting. Yes. Do we have a location yet for that?
We are either the Women's Club or there's one other facility we're working on with Mr. Gomez, but we're going to send out a blast to that and have flyers delivered around town, et cetera, that'll give all the details of everything. One thing to mention, we're also going to bring in translators for a few different languages for folks to ensure that there's transparency among the communication that's happening there too. So we will be bringing in a handful of translators.
Okay, very good. Yep.
I had a question about your other development, the 196 units down at the Vietnamese Baptist Church. In that clubhouse that you showed the pictures of, there was a laundry room.
Yes.
It looked like maybe 8 machines each, washer dryers.
That's right. Yeah, and then we also have hookups in all of the units as
Okay.
well.
That was the question. All right, just making sure 196 units weren't going to share eight
No.
machines, because that might be messy. Okay.
Yes. We do have full washer and dryer hookups and power associated for all of that in there. I think you're also going to find, compared to the market in the surrounding area, these units are very large that we're going to be building. In the East Pond site, the one-bedrooms are, I want to say they're 781 square feet. The two-bedrooms are approximately 950 square feet. The three-bedrooms are 1150, and the four-bedrooms are 1400. So they're very large, a lot of room units.
Yeah, and just on the how long are those AMI rates locked in for that project?
30 years.
30 years.
Yes.
Okay. So
Another thing to mention, we're a long-term hold developer. We're not one of the firms that merchant develops where we come in and develop, lease up, and sell. The way that we finance and the type of structure we use, it's very difficult for us to get out from underneath these projects. So, you better believe that we have a vested interest in these things if we're holding on to them for 30 years.
yeah.
That said, do you have any plans for in-house sprinkler systems in the new units?
I'm glad you said that. Definitely on the new project. Actually, we had a call on it today with our architect to ensure that there are sprinklers installed into the East Pond site.
Okay. In all the units?
Yes.
Great. Extra safe. Wonderful. Any other questions, comments?
So my only other question is there an option to provide childcare for the community meeting that you're going to have, since we're talking about residential spaces, and those are going to have an array of value for people that are maybe low income or medium income to also come to be a part of the conversation?
And you're saying, will there be childcare at the community meeting?
Yeah.
We're more than happy to explore that, yes.
Okay. Wonderful. And then we have just a few minutes. I mean, if anyone has a quick question or just a quick comment, feel free just to raise your hand. We recognize you. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. You want to stand up? You said hell yes for the downtown. Okay. All right. All right. Very good. And so I think, if anyone wants to speak with them, maybe y'all could hang around in the lobby just for a few minutes. And
Probably going to sit through for
Okay.
a little while.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, good. No problem. Y'all can leave early if you need to. But these gentlemen around, Chris and Craig, thank you for. It was great to work with you in terms of that annexation and rezone for that project. I guess it was like 2 years. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was about So we had a an issue that came up on a property boundary, and that's what's
right.
caused the long lag in the closing. The adjacent property owner lives in South America, and so we've had a very hard time reserving a property boundary dispute with them, which is, I'm happy to report, finally in the short roads.
Yeah, and I'm just reminded that the how many acres of green space were you able to preserve in that project?
7.5.
7.5, kind of towards
14
the
acres. We're building
the
on
stream buffer.
About 6.5. We did not request any variances for any sort of wetlands buffers, stream buffers, et cetera. We're not impacting any of that in any way, shape, or form. We're also not building on the other side of that, which is out of the buffer. So we're leaving all that undisturbed.
I do have two quick questions. Sorry. Is it possible for some of the tree replanting that some of that could occur in the 7 acres that's behind the current project in the Vietnamese church?
If the Army Corps of Engineers will allow it, yes. If the Georgia Soil and Water and all of those folks have no opposition to us planting trees, we certainly have no opposition to that. We have a healthy landscaping budget in the plan.
And then the other question I had is just kind of what you think the effect would be on like downtown development of the project if it were to be approved for the Montreal one.
What sort of impact it would have on future development?
Yeah.
I think complicated answer, but we're seeing a lot of positive impact and change happening in the city of Clarkston. I mean, the infrastructure improvements that you guys have going on is remarkable. I haven't been here since 2 weeks ago, but before that, 3 months. And I told Mr. Gomez, amazed at the amount of work that's been going on. And so, assuming that type of work is what the city and the community wants to have happen, I think it could, certainly spur that. If it's not something, then obviously that's something that it doesn't happen in the future, right? But I do think that this could be a way to create a Class A community that provides for the retail and the community area and space, but it also affords it for the residents that live here and that want to be here long term, and you don't have a developer coming in and building a $1,500 a unit 1-bedroom unit. So for lack of better words, we do think that it could spur additional and future growth, potentially with additional tax revenue coming into the city and additional business growth happening as folks continue to kind of buzz around in that area, for lack of better words.
And just one other thing, thanks for mentioning that, Jamie. I was struck by you mentioned 40 to 80% AMI.
Yes.
And I think that's interesting that you've gone that low in terms of average median income, because I think what you're sort of seeing, and Brookhaven put out their policy, and you've seen other cities put out policies, they sort of say 80% AMI is affordable housing.
Yeah.
And clearly that's more affordable for maybe like, a $60,000 salary kind of middle class position. But, obviously there's people who work minimum wage, who work for less than that and can't afford 80% AMI. So can you just explain how is it that you are able to do, a certain percentage of lower than 80% AMI?
Sure. So similar to the project at the church, it's financed from an equity standpoint through tax credits. The church project is through 4% tax credits, which are non-competitive, and this one is through the 9% tax credit. It is competitive through the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, but it essentially, on a dollar spent on construction, you get about $1.30 in equity, the way it translates through all the financing and the calculations that comes into the project to be used on a construction standpoint. So essentially, every dollar of cost we generate $1.30 of equity that a long-term investor, which is typically a bank or a life insurance company, comes in through the Community Reinvestment Act. Due to the fact that it's the 9% credit, us as the developer want to take that approach and provide the deeper targeting. It provides less cash flow for us, obviously, but it's a need and it's a thing. So which is something that goes into our mission and what we believe in. So.
Okay.
Okay, and I have a
Anything else
question.
to add to that, Craig?
Well, what's important is that because of that, we tied down these AMI targets for the next 30 years. So the arrangement is you get these tax credits, which allows you to build a Class A product. On the other side of that, you have to charge these low rents, and you have to target these lower income folks for the next 30 years. So it's our country's way of making sure that affordable housing is still high quality, high character housing. And that's, it's a grand program. It is this country's affordable housing program.
Yeah, very good.
And can you restate the potential parking problem?
Sure. So, the trade-off is green space to parking. I mean, that's what it comes down to. The parking is, currently the code requires 2 spaces per unit. And then for every 1,000 square feet of retail, you have to have 5 parking spaces. So if you assume two parking spaces per unit, you're at 120 parking spaces on the units alone. And then say we do 4,000 square feet of retail, you're looking at an additional 20 parking spaces there, so 140 parking spaces. If you go for the space and a half per unit, that's 90 parking spaces required on the units, and then the additional 20 on top of that, so we're at 110. The challenge in incorporating green space, we can accommodate about 70 parking spaces on the site to make sure that we bring in that green space. One of the potential solutions there is you can look at leaving the green space, leaving the same footprint as the parking, and just having a layer of parking above the base layer, so one deck above that. The other solution is us purchasing an off-site site and doing additional surface parking. We are exploring both of those options, but those things are input that we want from the City Council. We want from the residents to figure out what path you guys, if this is something you're going to potentially support, which avenue you would like us to go, because we would like to make decisions in conjunction with the city to do that.
Yeah, question in the back.
We have. It's very expensive. The project can support it. The Georgia Department of Community Affairs, being the behemoth of an organization they are, they publish maximum unit construction costs. So when we go into, and this all comes down from HUD and the regulations that they put on these housing finance agencies. When we go into the area of trying to do underground parking, it puts you above the allotted construction costs that they let us build within. So would love to be able to do that, but the Department of Community Affairs doesn't allow us to do that. We've kind of got a hybrid here where we're going to be able to park under half of the building. From the roadside, you don't see that, but when you pull around behind, the cars can pull in under the back half of the building. So it's sort of a hybrid, but it doesn't go underground.
Gotcha. Yes. Question right here.
We have not closed on. We're under option at this point. That's right. We certainly anticipate soliciting feedback and getting a lot more things to line up before actually purchasing the property. We would never do that.
Okay. Very good. Well, we'll look forward to moving along that process with you. Thanks for coming here and introducing that to the community. I think the council and everyone here can be in touch with more questions, comments, and I think, certainly I think let's focus on the February 22nd community meeting so we get good input for that project that is happening. And then maybe we can look at, into March, a follow-up to this.
Sure.
Very good. Thank you all very much. All right. And yes, all right. So next item, CD5, the Clarkston Neighborhood Alliance.
Yes, Mayor and Council, and I'd like to introduce Lisa Williams, a Clarkston resident, to discuss this organization that they're calling, or residents, community members are calling the Clarkston Neighborhood Alliance. To Ms. Williams will introduce it. I'll let her
take it away, Ms.
This will
Williams.
be really fast. Just wanted to let you guys know.
Yeah, no
Excuse me. Yes, we've organized the Neighborhood Alliance as a nonprofit organization here in Clarkston. It's basically like a neighborhood association, but currently the only one I know of that is in existence in Clarkston. So we will be outreaching to all neighbors, neighborhoods, residents, and seeking feedback on what's needed and how we can help and how we can come together to build better communities. I'm just going to read you our mission statement here. is to be a positive force that builds community by providing a forum for sharing information, connecting neighbors, promoting activities, and fostering civic engagement in our diverse city. We do look forward to collaborating with the council and the city and the mayor. All are welcome. We've already been working with City Manager Gomez on a couple of our inaugural events. The first one's going to be a spring mixer on March 21st at the Clarkston Women's Club, and then we will follow that up with a tree planting in Friendship Forest on April 11th. So we will start that outreach this week. All right. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? I don't know if I can answer them, but I'll try.
Are y'all going to have, do you know if you're going to have monthly meetings, quarterly meetings, or any idea yet?
We don't know yet. So we have basically just gotten started. I'm the interim president, and we are going to be outreaching. And from the spring mixer we hope to garner some feedback and some community involvement to kind of see what the interest and what the needs of all the different neighborhoods are. And from there, we'll kind of build out our structure and our calendar and try to solidify some more of that information.
Okay. Yeah, wonderful. And then I think we certainly could offer the women's club, because it doesn't get used that much, but it does get used. But I'm sure we can get it on the calendar. And
Yeah, we have
if
it
that's a good
for-
space to start with.
Yeah,
it's
we
option
do,
for
we
you.
do hope to solidify a regular meeting, whether it be monthly or quarterly. I'm not really sure yet. It'll have to be based on
Okay.
really what the community wants.
Fantastic. Well, if the women's club helps as a location, or
Yeah,
maybe the
that's
community
great.
center,
Thank you.
let us know.
Mayor and Council, I just want to add quickly that in the two communities that I've worked in, this type of organization has been extremely successful in kind of bringing multiple neighborhoods and diverse neighborhoods, and not just homeowners, but apartments, condos, multifamily, to kind of be a voice and a liaison, a linkage, whatever the terms are, between government, nonprofits, education, all sorts of industries that have proven to be very, very successful, and I think in many, many cities throughout the country.
Yeah.
So
Fantastic.
hopefully they'll create it, work on it, and whatever support we can provide, we look to do that with the council's guidance.
Yeah, that was my question, Lisa. Hey, thanks for presenting. Outside of the city, who are y'all working with as far as the community providers in order to make sure you're engaging all of the neighborhoods and communities and apartment complexes?
Good question. We are going, like I said, we're going to start our outreach this week, and we will be doing, a social campaign as well as just feet on the ground and flyer campaigns. And we are definitely going to have an extra effort to communicate with a lot of the apartment complexes and communities that aren't just homeowners, and really try to get some voices in those communities and find out what their needs are and get their involvement.
I'm assuming you're going to have translators, too.
We're going to work on that. Volunteers welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
Awesome.
All right.
All right. Thanks,
Thanks.
Lisa. All right. Look forward to that. We'll help you get the word out. All right. Can you hit the? You want to hit that? Hey, all right. All right. To our report section, Ms. Shawana Cowie, our illustrious planning director, planning and zoning report.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Excuse me. The February 18th, there's a Planning and Zoning Board meeting. The cases are the North American Mission Board and the Southern Baptist Convention. They've submitted a conditional use permit application for the properties located at 961 Roland Street and 3673 Hill Street for the construction of athletic fields and other athletic facilities. There is an additional conditional use permit that is submitted by Abdul Dean with Brava Auto Brokers for the property located at 1352 Brockett Road for the use of car sales, repairs, and emissions.
Okay. And then just
Go
real quick on that. So it's a public meeting about the conditional use permit.
Yeah, this is actually the Planning and Zoning Board meeting, so these are the hearings. The meetings that were previously were the community open house meetings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
That was a requirement as far as they were concerned for conditional use permits or rezoning cases.
Okay, that's
So-
a new thing.
Yeah, that's a new thing, and they
Right.
fulfill that.
For
Thank
both
you, Jen.
locations? For both locations?
For both locations.
Great. Thanks.
And to make note of your productive members of the Clarkston Historical Preservation Commission will graduate on Thursday, along with myself, from the Historic Preservation Leadership course. They are individually and collectively working to create stories and histories for this proposed historic district for the community. So if you would like to share with them whatever knowledge that you have, please share with them any information. Mr. Moore is here, so he can raise his hand so you can talk to him if you like. And Ms. Pat Davis Morris is also, and Ashton Walker is your Historic Preservation Commission. So feel free to talk to them, give them public input, whatever you desire, they're here for you for those nice creative stories for your historic district.
Wonderful. And then do we have like a draft map? that we're working on
They're
for
actually doing that right now.
Okay.
That's what they're actually gathering, and as soon as they have that information together, they will present it in a nice, detailed meeting for all to participate. So we are working diligently for that. Correct, Mr. Moore? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, your appointed members on your Clarkston Downtown Development Authority did do their basic Downtown Development Authority training on January the 25th. That was with the Georgia United Summit. So Mr. Doug Guest and Mr. Emmanuel Ransom also attended that training. So your appointed members, as I remember, are Doug Guest, Emmanuel Ransom, Councilwoman YT Bell, and Councilman Vice Mayor Awet Iyasu. So you also have 3 remaining slots for your Downtown Development Authority.
Thank you, Mayor Ransom, already getting to work like you said you would. Okay, all right. We're done.
And also, as a part of the Planning Development 2020 Work Plan, our quarterly series would involve having code compliance do 3 series this quarter. The first series will be to do or not to do. That will be in mid-March, and that's basically is going to be geared towards the apartment complexes and their leasing offices and business owners and what they need to do, and give us feedback on how we can be a little bit more productive in those areas as far as they're concerned. So we will announce the date as soon as we have one and a location. If anyone has any questions or concerns, feel free to call my office with any questions that you may have. That's the end of the planning and zoning report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Covey? I have a quick question, just a comment on the on the apartment complex leasing managers. So if I know it sounds like it's voluntary.
To come to this meeting?
Yeah.
We're trying not to make that voluntary because we know that there have been some amendments in our ordinance as far as, as far as the apartment complexes that can have nonprofit, schools and tutoring. So we need to update them on that.
Okay. So you're very serious about they should be there.
That. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. City Manager's Report, Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, Mayor, and again, good evening to everyone. I'm Robin Gomez, the Clarkston City Manager. Thank you all for attending this evening. It's great to see a room full of residents, businesses, and even some visitors, I believe. Wanted to continue with our campaign for the 2020 census. We are less than 2 months away. April 1st, 2020 is Census Day. Happens every 10 years. It's been happening since 1790. Again, the point of the census to count every person, no matter where you may be, and count you only once at the right place as where you are currently residing on April the 1st. Important for federal apportionment, how many representatives are in the United States House of Representatives. Also, how to allocate approximately $675 billion annual from the federal Treasury as part of the federal budget, and also just a lot of cool data, all sorts of data that we obtain from who we are, where we may be from, where our ancestors are from, etc. On January the 21st, the first counting or enumeration, it's a fancy word, enumeration of residents in the U.S. began in Toksook Bay in Alaska. They began in a very remote part of the United States to begin to count folks, and again, the goal is to count I'm going to infer about 338 million people living in the United States as of April the 1st, 2020. If anybody's curious, 1 out of every 10 people live in Georgia and Florida, which is 2 states. And actually, nearly half of all Americans live in the 5 most populated states: California, Texas, Florida, New York, and Illinois. So lots of fun facts, data. Every industry uses census data to make decisions, including our developers, including everyone from schools to car manufacturers to restaurants to all sorts of retail and other businesses. They use that data. So it's important. We're encouraging everyone to fill it out. Last night we had our continuing Clarkston Complete Count committee meeting, and we will continue to have those through July. And they are the last Monday of every month. So the next meeting will be Monday, February the 24th, beginning at 6 p.m. at the Clarkston Women's Club. We do provide dinner. There is a nice meal provider from a local restaurant. So we do encourage folks to attend, learn about how everybody can help out. We are in the process of finalizing a postcard that we will be delivering, not through U.S. mail or through FedEx or DHL. We will be delivering mostly to our multifamily complexes to encourage and to remind people about the census. We are printing it in 7 languages. And I know some of the languages are Amharic, Burmese, Nepali, Arabic, Swahili, Karen, just to name a few, but so that we can distribute those throughout the city and give people a heads up as to what they will be receiving. Every household in America will receive a postcard that will have a unique identifying number on it that household will then be able to be counted in the census, count everyone in their household, and you will be able to do that for the first time online, electronically, or by phone, or how we used to do it via paper. So again, everybody be on the lookout for that in the next 2 months. Our financial report, Mayor and Council, that you have in front of you, it's about 16 pages. There are copies in the back if anybody would like to take a look at. This is a report unaudited for that summarizes our fiscal year 2019. Most of the revenues and most of the expenditures. We do have some outstanding revenues or receivables, as we call them in the accounting world. That's money that occurred in 2019, but we have not received it yet. Also, we have some expenditures that have occurred in 2019, but they have not been recorded because we have not paid certain invoices specifically relating to construction and a lot of the projects that are the work that you see outside. So, council members, what we have is, just to begin on the first page, the cover page, under our expenditures, you can see the total expenditures. They're above our budget for the year. And the main reason for that are the capital projects where we have received the lease for our vehicles that we did for the police vehicles, the Ford Expedition hybrids. We have received 6 of the 10. Is that correct, Chief? 6 of the 10. So we have actually paid for those. We have not paid for the remaining 4. But that's a reason why the capital project's a little bit higher. And also part of that is relating to all the construction of streetscapes work. It's a little bit complicated because we are required to record some of the expenditures in the general fund, others in special revenue funds, and then, for example, part of the Splost, and others in federal highway transportation money, and yet another part that is from part of the federal highway, but a different loan that goes through the state of Georgia and also through the state road and tollways authority. So there are numerous ways, but just what we capture in the general fund. The total revenue number, the $7 million, which again also includes a large capital projects revenue, that's where I stated the revenue for the lease. We have received all of that. Let's just call it a loan that we've received to buy those vehicles that we will pay back over time. And that's why we received all of that, even though we haven't spent all of the money yet, because we still need to pay for the 4 vehicles that we have not received. But if you were to net out those capital projects on the expenditures and the revenues, our total revenues just over $5.5 million in the general fund, and our total expenditures are about $5.362 million. So at this point, our revenues are above our expenditures for fiscal 19, but as I stated, we have not recorded all of the revenues, all the expenditures. We hope to have that completed by the end of this month. For example, we do have one of our last payments for the streetscape, we have a bill. The company submitted one bill for the entire last quarter of the year, September through December. So staff is looking through that massive invoice again to ensure that it is as correct as it should be and that we pay for all of the services that were provided, all the construction. On the cover sheet below the summary of key expenditures, you can see many of those, with the exception of, again, the capital projects and our community funds, are below budget. We're very cognizant, obviously, to ensure that we have enough revenue for all the expenditures that we spend. As we go through the next several pages, they begin with expenditures starting with administration, which is the council, the city manager's office, and the contracts that we pay for our external auditor, for example. Our attorney, I'm just going to go through some of the, in case there may be questions about why some of our expenditures exceed why the actual exceeds the budget, for example, for our attorney. As we know, the lawsuit that we've had with the Southern Baptist North American Mission Board, I did receive yesterday the December bill from our attorneys or firm, and so this does not reflect that December bill. Our December total bill, which is for the lawsuit and then the regular attorney work that is done, is about $20,000. So we will even more exceed our budget on attorney's fees. In the end, the total cost of that lawsuit will approach probably close to $60,000 total once we foot and review that bill, because I think you'll still have a bill in January for part of that. The other categories really stayed within budget. As we continue, again, the community action projects, we had the urban agriculture was an item that we did not budget for, as well as part of the wildflower project, even though the urban agriculture was $40,000. The wildflower project was a carryover from 2018 that there were still unpaid invoices from work that the city had obtained from a vendor. And so we actually only ended up paying half of those invoices because the vendor could not provide sufficient evidence that certain work was completed. As we continue throughout pages 3 and 4, and you'll see with other departments, our buildings and grounds on page 3, again, we did not exceed the expenditures. The actual were just a little bit below the actual, nothing overly to note. Our court department on page 4, again, our expenditures were well below the actual, well below the budget. We had one position that was vacant at the end of the year, but we're now up to full staff. But so the salaries were the reason why the salaries were a little bit below. Also, we did change one position where we lowered the job classification, so a little bit of a lower salary. Continuing the police department for expenditures, we dealt the year primarily with at least 3 vacancies. Again, why the expenditures for salaries were significantly below. Because we were short a few positions or had the vacancies, we ended up expending a little bit more in overtime to cover some of those shifts. And also, as you go down, this is on page 5 for police. As you scroll down the line items, the rows, you'll see where we greatly exceeded for vehicle repairs and maintenance because we had older vehicles that required a lot of repairs. We are budgeting a little bit. I don't remember the exact budget for the current year, but it will be less because we have brand new vehicles that we acquired, as I mentioned earlier, through our lease purchase program. So we will not have that going forward. We also had planned in 2019 for the police budget, as you go down the third row from the bottom for gas, oil, and diesel, we had projected spending a lot more money on gas, so we sort of balanced the repairs a little bit with the gas because having the new vehicles that we would be just allocating a little bit more fuel because now they are take-home vehicles for the officers.
And more fuel efficient.
And better fuel emissions. So yeah, we constantly review our fuel every month. Public Works, the same. We had a sort of a vacancy throughout a part of the year, but not very much. But again, most of their expenditures really just nothing overly that we exceeded in terms of the budget. The total, again, was at 84%. Same with parks, although we did spend a little bit more. We had some water and sewer, for example, where we exceeded the budget 300%. That dealt with the repairs at the pool, and we did have to drain the pool when we had some repairs, and so that led to a little bit more in our water and sewer costs for our parks. We stayed within budget for the management of our pool, but we did have to spend some money on replacing pumps. For example, planning and development, we had a vacancy through the year, and again, the total expenditures were at 81.4% of the budget. The actual is a percentage of the budget. Again, nothing that we really greatly exceeded other than in the building inspections, because we had a significant amount of building permit activity, and conversely, the revenue for the building permits, as I will point out in a few pages, was significantly more than what we budgeted. The debt service is pretty straightforward. We are making payments, again, as I stated, on our leases. For example, the bonds that we have, that the city has obtained for, or did obtain for Friendship Forest, and also for some of the construction work. That's the GTIB loans. So we have leases on that. We're still paying a little debt on the City Hall Annex is another one of the debt items. So, but we're pretty standard. We actually spent a little bit less because we didn't draw down all of the loans for the construction, since we didn't finish all of the construction. And then just continue page 10, again, more of our special projects that we did, and we get a little bit into the capital and the construction funds and the Splost fund. Just to go over the Splost fund, again, the council decided a couple of years ago to bond the first 5.5 million of the anticipated 10.8 million of the additional 1% sales tax. So we have that money, and that's what we have been spending, along with federal funding and along with the loan, to pay for all of the construction costs. And we will have a detail of all of that. I know I've said it a couple of meetings, but we need, because the construction is not completed, we need to get a better handle of exactly when we are looking to spend it, and we're certain that it'll be spent all of 2020, although we had anticipated that it would be completed in 2019, but that's obviously not the case. But we will actually have, certainly by March, if we have a retreat, we will have our financial advisors explain where we are with all of our bonds, the Splost, what our debt capacity is. We'll go into much greater detail. But again, these are unaudited figures, and we haven't finished the year, as I've stated. On page 11, just our federal forfeiture and our city forfeiture, and we received some additional revenue, and hence we actually replaced a vehicle for, is that the lieutenant's vehicle? The cap for the assistant chief has, but we purchased another vehicle out of the federal forfeiture money that we had received. And that's really the majority of the expenses on there, other than the leases for police vehicles that we had previously purchased, and those lease payments finished this year. On page 12, again, this is how we record a combination of the, as I've stated, the federal highway funding that we receive for the streetscape. You see a pretty large expenditure of 1.9 million that is reflected a couple of times. We did receive all of that funding, and subsequently on page 15 in the revenue portion, we record that revenue under our grant fund. And again, a lot of this is based on the timing as to when we anticipated the construction to be finished. And then the next two on page 12 for expenditures are our stormwater fund and our sanitation or trash and fund. Just to remind everyone, those are billed. Every property pays for stormwater and sanitation on the annual property tax bill. Stormwater is $63.96 per year per equivalent residential unit, which means if you have a single-family house, you're billed $63.96 on your property tax bill. If you own an apartment complex, then it's based on a calculation that is done to determine an equivalent residential unit. So that can be depending on the size of the building, if your apartment complex has 5 buildings, then you may be paying 5 times $63.96, or approximately $320 for the stormwater fee. And sanitation, again, we bill $216.21 a year. I think we discussed as to what that may look like in the future. That may include an increase depending on what we do with recycling going forward. So those are 11 pages of our expenditures from mostly our general fund, our special revenue funds, our Splost fund, sanitation, stormwater, and a few more. On the revenue side, once we get to page 13, you will see the first 4 lines that our revenues are below what the actual are below what we had budgeted. The biggest one, and we haven't received all of the property tax revenue, but we are approaching the end. And as I think I've stated individually to many of you up here on the council and mayor, that there have been significant number of appeals for valuations, and what we're trying to determine is how that process eventually plays out. We have not followed up in prior years what happens. Well, we know what happens if somebody appeals it and they lose their appeal, then they have to pay the difference. If they win the appeal and their value drops even more, then they are due a refund. But when somebody appeals their tax bill, their assessment, you will, and it goes into the time into September and then November, you will pay what you paid last year. You will not pay the higher assessment. There are multiple apartment complexes that have fallen into that realm where they've paid what they paid last year, and because they appealed their increase this year, that's where we don't know where they are, and that's where we need to find out. Now, that could translate into a couple of $100,000, especially if it's, again, a large apartment complex where the difference in the assessment could be as much as $2 million. So $2 million at 15.89 mils is a sizable amount of revenue, and we will get to the bottom of that. That has not happened to this level, I don't think, ever in Clarkston, because we had declining revenues for many years for assessments and real property and personal property. Now it's gone in the other direction, and quite a bit of properties have appealed it. As I've stated, there is currently a lawsuit by several apartment complexes over the process that the county has performed regarding assessment. So we're waiting to determine what that is. So we will book receivables, or as the term is, money that we expect to receive. The largest one that we have, other than for property taxes, pertains to franchise fees from Georgia Power. So for electric, currently we've received $1,900. Our budget is is $215,000. So we're waiting to receive that revenue sometime this month, which will be approximately $215,000 to $220,000. And then other line items on here, we had increases that have helped the general fund budget. Everything from the alcoholic beverage excise tax, the local option mixed drink tax, our business or occupational taxes. Our insurance premium had a sizable a dollar amount increase, although not as big as a percentage as some of the others, but that is our second single largest source of revenue, the insurance premium tax, and we had over a $50,000 increase. And then also work permit ID cards had a little bit of an increase. And I stated earlier, our building permits had a sizable increase due to the building activity that has been occurring this past year. Some decreases, not significant, for example, for building inspections, for the use of our women's club, although we estimate $20,000 in revenue, we received just over $18,000. Our pool admissions saw an increase. Our intergovernmental revenues, which when Mr. Defnall returns, we'll get the exact detail as to what that comprises. Of course, our municipal court fines and fees, we received $547,000, or I believe that's all the revenue. We had budgeted $700,000, but again, it continues a trend of declining revenue, and the budget for this current year, we left at $525,000 for municipal court fines. We anticipate receiving considerably less going forward. But the rest of our general fund revenues are doing fairly okay. We are
Robin,
also
on the tree replacement and preservation fees. That's the tree bank, our tree bank.
yes.
Basically.
I mean, that's when tree permits are filed to remove a tree.
That's the tree bank. Okay, and that's so it's so we collected.
We collected 20,500.
And what's the total?
I'll have to look. I think some residents have stated that we had over $50,000. I'll confirm when Dan returns, but we'll see exactly what we have. But that is the collection for the current year, and we have not spent any money.
We didn't spend any in 2019.
No, we did not.
Okay, so we've banked some.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, and the last item on the general fund for revenues, as I stated, are the last two line items on page 14, proceeds from capital leases, and then the proceeds from our state roads and tollway authority proceeds for the construction. Again, as I mentioned earlier, that's a little over 1.5 million. The reason our actual revenue is over 7 million. But again, to reiterate, in the general fund as we stand now, our expenditures, aside from the capital projects, are at 5,362,567, and our revenues just over 5.5 million. So it appears that we will have a little bit of an excess, but we haven't finished out the year, and we will have an update. I'll have hopefully a final unaudited update at the March council meeting with an audited update at the April council meeting. The remaining pages are just revenues for the funds that I went over the expenditures. Nothing really alarming. We received very close on all of them, nearly the revenue that we had anticipated. Our Splost revenue, as it's stated on the bottom of page 15, we received a little over 1.8 million, which is a little bit more than what we had budgeted, but and it's approximately 5% above the first year of collections. The Splost we began receiving the monthly distribution in April of 2018. So we have 9 months in 2018, April to December. When we compare the same 9-month period in 2019, collections in 2019 were 5% higher, which is a positive trend. I wish they were higher, but it's better than being less. It means the economy is doing well in terms of sales tax, because sales tax is one of those very volatile. People get anxious or nervous, they stop spending, then your sales tax collections declines, and that's really one of the first indicators of an incoming, the big R, recession. That's it. As I stated, Mayor and Council will have a final at the next council meeting, but I will keep you posted as to how we proceed for the rest of this month. Our external auditors spent 1 day already reviewing our trial balances for our external audit, and they hope to complete that by early April, and then we'll have a presentation likely at the May council meeting. Any questions on
Yep. Any questions?
I do have some questions. Could I get updates for the council and public on some of the construction projects, what the timing is on Friendship Forest and what the timing is on the Market Street? And
skip to the next part of my report then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's
We thought you were done.
No, I told everybody I'd speak quickly, but I provided an update to the council last Friday as to where we are with the construction on Market, East Ponce, pretty much those are the two main roads right now. They are scheduled to be completed by May. That would be the final paving, or the final inch to 2 inches of asphalt on East Ponce from Market all the way to 285, and then Market Street from North Indian Creek down to Roland Street, or just past Roland Street. They're working, obviously, after Market reopened, the last few weeks have been finishing the sidewalks, the curbing, mostly along Market Street, and then the electrical component of installing the signalized traffic intersection lights to the mast arms, and then the conduit that is underground that will eventually result in the overhead power lines on Market Street being removed. They are hopeful that that will happen by April. Georgia Power will come out and remove the poles, and then the subcontractor will then place them into the conduit underground. And the poles will be gone, and it's going to look even significantly better than it does now. The brickwork and the curbing and the sidewalk should be completed by the end of this month, weather pending. So the majority will be finished by, again, by early March in terms of what's happening now. The landscaping will come in March as well on Market and along East Ponce, including the little pocket park that's on the corner of North Indian Creek and East Ponce. The work on this side of the railroad tracks, again, also slated for the May completion. They are just about finished with all the curbing. It does need to have its first layer of asphalt, and the paving company was out here today. The reason they didn't pave it when they told us they were going to last time is they were concerned about some of the paving that had not, the curbing, excuse me, that had not been finished right outside this building on Market Street. That was subsequently finished by our contractor the following week, but then the weather too cold and a little freezing and thawing for paving. So it's unfortunately supposed to rain the rest of this week and early part of next week. So we're now a little bit depending on the weather, at least for the paving on what needs to be in on Market from Church down to Rowland. The other projects on East Ponce at Brockett and then Rowland at North Indian Creek are also scheduled to be completed before that by April because they're much smaller, not as much material or equipment. At Rowland and North Indian Creek, we are waiting for the mast arms to come in. There's apparently a shortage of mast arms, and after our contractor trying to reach 2 other companies to acquire the mast arms, they stated that they should be arriving by mid-March to get the mast arms to, because there will be a hawk type signal over North Indian Creek at Rowland to allow for pedestrian and bicyclist as the continuation of the path. Friendship Forest earlier today, the contractor performed about, I would estimate about 70 to 75% of the paving. Mr. Hadlock, did you walk down there by any chance?
I didn't go from
okay. Bottom up. I was trying to determine if my estimates were pretty good or not, but there was a considerable amount of paving today from the pavilion down at the main part of the nature preserve up to, or wildlife sanctuary, excuse me, up to the parking area. So they are, I said, probably about 60 to 70% completed. We're not certain when that will be finished because of the impending rain, but as soon as it stops raining and it's not cold enough, they'll finish all of that, which will include the parking lot and the entrance to East Ponce. So that will be completed as soon as that paving is finished. If anybody does walk down from East Ponce, I did field a few comments from adjoining neighbors that the clearing of brush and just it looks much nicer. I haven't been here for decades, so I cannot attest to how people may have liked that it looked, but it looks very clean. But several residents have said, well, now it's too open. Now people can jump the fence. Are you going to put another fence or a fence? I don't know whose fence that is there, if it's city fence or on the one that adjoins I guess they're townhomes on Cobble Mill Lane. There's a chain link fence. But we will look, and we may need to consider a fence in the future depending on what ends up happening. But there are cameras that will be installed at Friendship Forest. That's the final thing that will go in after the paving, but we're hoping to have a grand opening sometime in March for Friendship Forest. And then the next 2 projects will resume on the other side of East Ponce from near Brockett Road, which will be a sidewalk. The curbing has gone in, and then Rowland right behind us, the continuation of the path from Market Street down to North Indian Creek. We will have to coordinate with the construction that the Southern Baptist North American Mission Board is working on. But that's update for now. It is transforming the city. It's been a long time coming, and we're nearing the end. The end is fast or approaching then. But I wish this would have been completed 6 or 7 months ago.
There's like another $6 million in Splost projects, though, after that.
Yes. Yeah, no, the Splost will continue on more.
This end, but then more ends in sight.
Yes.
Good project.
And speaking of Friendship Forest, we did, as we had last week at the work session, everyone is welcome. We're looking for volunteers to participate this Saturday at the South Peachtree Creek cleanup, the Rivers Alive Waterway cleanup. Anybody interested to volunteer can show up this Saturday morning, 9 a.m. at Friendship Forest. Looks like it's not going to rain in the morning, rather later in the afternoon, but help us clean up. Again, if anybody walks down the entryway to Friendship Forest, you will see the removal of a lot of the brush and what I would call some of the overgrowth on the sides has also yielded a considerable amount of trash that likely blew in there and ended up there over the years. And I counted about a dozen tires before I came here to the meeting. So the creek cleanup will help a lot in again, keeping that waterway clean. And we do encourage anybody interested to come out and participate. And lastly, I'd like for Chief Hudson to come up and just give a quick overview. I took away too much time, but an overview of our policing and public safety here in Clarkston. I'd like to do this monthly just to give an update, because again, our main priority is everyone's safety here. We strive to be as safe a city as we possibly can be, and it starts with Chief Hudson.
Thank you. Good evening, council and residents. I'm Chris Hudson. I'm your police chief here in Clarkston. I give a weekly report to city council members every week. All department heads do. And I talk about the significant events that the police department does. So what I want to do on a monthly basis is give you a total of some statistics that we keep so that you, as the residents of Clarkston, also are familiar with. So for the month of January, our officers wrote 234 citations. We gave out 53 warnings. We had 45 misdemeanor arrests. We had 6 felony arrests. Calls for service, and this is dispatch calls from Dekalb County. We handled 549 calls a month, this past month. As far as reports that were written, we had 118 reports that were written, incident reports, and had 42 traffic accidents here in the city of Clarkston. Any questions on that? I'm going to have Assistant Chief Hess. He's going to talk to you about a couple significant things that he's been working on as well.
So in my short time as the assistant chief, really been pushing training, which has been reflected. We've had a couple officers go to some specialized DUI training, which has resulted since September in 26 DUI arrests. Prior to September, we had 1 DUI arrest, which occurred January of 19, I'm sorry. February alone, we've had 4 DUI arrests, and it's only February 4th. So DUIs I take very seriously. My background is in traffic related, either DUI units or accident fatality reconstruction, which is usually direct cause of fatality accidents. So we're going to continue pushing DUIs, and to caveat that, by doing this, we also get in the good graces with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety and MATN, which is Metro Atlanta Traffic Enforcement Network. And through those networks, we're eligible through grants based on our participation in joint roadblocks, joint procedures throughout the state and within Dekalb County. So that's one of the angles we're working. I know everyone's got the million-dollar question about our 2020 hybrid vehicles. So I'll fill everyone in. We have received 5 of the 6, 4 of which are in the back parking lot. I'm trying to work out a lot of little bugs because we are the first agency in the city or the state of Georgia to have the 2020 hybrid SUV vehicles. So it's been a learning process between not only myself and the equipment, but the installers of the equipment. So we've had a couple little bumps in the road, but I am very hopeful by the beginning of next week you will see the 4 we have.
On patrol.
In patrol, yes. In patrol.
Out patrolling.
Yes. They will be assigned to an officer. It will not be issued as a take-home vehicle quite yet because we don't have the fleet to issue take-home vehicles to everybody in Patrol Division. So we have one in a body shop. We have another one being outfitted. One of them's at the Ford plant ready to ship, which I think they're shipping middle of this month. The other 3 are going into manufacturing end of this month. So hopefully come May-ish at the latest, we should have the full fleet and a full rollout of the 2020 vehicles. And they are very fuel efficient. They estimate close to 600 miles per tank of gas, where our Chargers were getting about 200 miles per tank of gas. So
How many miles do y'all drive in a month, in like a shift?
it varies based on call volume and based on the type of calls. I would estimate our officers are averaging roughly about 100 miles a day per shift. So in a vehicle, they're getting about 200 miles in a day, patrolling the neighborhoods, responding to calls.
100 miles in 1.4 square mile.
Yes, it's a lot. It's a lot of circling, so to speak. But we concentrate in our residential area. There's a big push for the community outreach, which next month I'm hopeful that I can give you guys an update on what we're doing with that kind of stuff. But we do take our job seriously. We don't like idle. We're out there working. So
It's a 12-hour shift
12-hour shift.
rather than 8 hours, which I think a lot of the public think it's an 8-hour shift, but it's 12 hours.
So I have a question about the DUIs. Y'all all attend the CIT training, right?
we are working on getting 100% CIT within the department. The realistic goal, I'd love to sit here and tell you this calendar year we would do it, but with scheduling and staffing, I can only usually send one officer, and it's sporadic throughout the state, but that is a top goal for training is to get 100% in the agency.
And I asked that question because I want to know what other symptomology are y'all seeing outside of just the addiction of alcohol?
It's,
Any bizarre behavior, any erratic behavior?
yes, we're seeing a lot, and we don't, generally our officers do the Intoxilizer 9000, which is a state-administered chemical test of your breath. But I know usually if we were to draw blood, you would see a combination of alcohol and narcotics, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a couple of questions. Do you think the increase in DUIs it might in any way be connected to the increased hours of the bars in Clarkston, the new?
I do not believe so. DUIs are always going to be out there. I think the uptick in arrest is correlation to the training that our officers have received recently. We've had 2 brand new, straight out of the academy officers last year that just received the DUI training. So, and then we hired in an officer from Avondale Estates around that August, September timeframe. Her background is a lot in traffic enforcement, so she is well trained on DUIs. So it's just, I believe the correlation is with the training that the officers have received, not so much that it's the uptick in hours.
Excellent.
I can add, Councilwoman, just 2 DUIs or within the time I've been here. One was at 2 in the afternoon, where he took out a utility pole on East Ponce, 2 in the afternoon, and he was intoxicated. And I don't remember the one on Montreal Road next to Plantation, where they took out the fence. One of those was a DUI. I don't remember the time of day, but
that one was
may have been at night.
8, 9 o'clock. It was still early. It wasn't like after the bars closed type.
Not a 4 a.m. one. Okay.
No.
And also, are these new vehicles? Did you say they're on the road yet? Any of them, the hybrid vehicles? Not yet.
Working out the bugs. I spent probably 3 hours today working out some kinks on the vehicles. With Sergeant Bodron was assisting me, and he probably spent another 2 hours working with vendors, because we have install vendors to do the emergency equipment, as well as we have another vendor that does our body cameras and in-car camera systems. And we're finding out that with these 2020 hybrids, because the way they're wired, the electrical in them is completely different than what they're used to. Little accidental cross a wire here, and then we're having to go back and uncross it type deal. So it's been a learning curve for the vendor itself and for us.
Just got a quick question on the, as Councilmember Bell mentioned, so far, have you had any arrests besides DUI under the influence of alcohol? I believe any other substance that we have positively ID'd?
No, not at this time. They've all been alcohol related.
Okay.
They're all alcohol related. For the drug impairment side, that's even more specialized training that I'm going to try to get some of our folks into, because the manifestations of someone intoxicated under narcotics can be completely different than the depressant of alcohol. So you have stimulants, depressants, and how to detect to what extent they're under the influence of.
Okay.
Do we have any homicides 2019?
Pardon me?
Any homicide in 2019?
Yes, we had 5 in 2019. And I will say this, DeKalb County as a whole in 2019, the homicide rate spiked across the county. I've spoken with the major over the Tucker precinct as well as CID for DeKalb County as a whole. Homicide spiked across the board for DeKalb County as a whole in 2019. We're not the only ones.
And we have only one of those homicides
Was unsolved.
is unsolved.
And all the other 4 homicides we had arrests within 48 hours.
I just wanted to add for anybody that was listening, Councilwoman Bell had asked about the CIT training, and that's crisis intervention training, specialized training for police officers in dealing with people in a crisis mental state.
Sorry, I didn't clarify. I'm a social worker.
And Mayor and Council, to add and to reiterate to everyone, my top priority is their safety. And the safety of all of our workforce, and making sure that our officers are well taken care of goes beyond resources and equipment. There's certainly the aspect of what they see, what they encounter in the job. So that hence a lot of the training that we are now began to gravitate since Assistant Chief Hess became the Assistant Chief, and we will continue to do that because it is important that they are not only able to do the physical component of the job, but certainly their well-being their mental well-being is a priority as well. So that's a big focus, and both the chief and the assistant chief and I have had many conversations. They're very supportive of that. So we will just wanted to, since you brought up that.
GBI and the Georgia State Patrol have started a peer counseling. And so if any of our officers need to contact any of them, it's all anonymous, that they can pick up the phone and make a phone call and speak to somebody.
Yeah. Y'all are encouraging that to be an option.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have our resources in place to where if an officer is having a difficult time, that we will provide assistance to that officer 100%.
Because I'm a social worker and not a counselor. If we could find some therapists, because counseling deals with your current right now, and social workers deal with everything that impacts you to be the person that you are. And so some of the issues that the officers may face may be beyond that day. So if we could just look a little bit further, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, great suggestion. All right. Thank you all very much. Appreciate that reports. And so, we'll look forward to doing that every council meeting during the city manager's report.
And
very good.
All I had, Mayor. Council.
All right, wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Gomez. City Attorney report, Mr. Stephen Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to save mine for item G2. It's really all I have to report on.
Okay. All right, very good. We'll start, and we'll do our council remarks. Start down here to my left. Council.
I don't have any today.
Okay, no problem.
No remarks today.
I just want to mention that February is Black History Month, and last month we lost a great citizen within the city of Clarkston, Miss Betty Amin. She passed away on the 19th, and I was able to attend her funeral service on the 22nd, and I definitely want to say our condolences to her family, and going forward, we definitely want to recognize her contribution to our city. Thank you.
I have no report.
No report.
Okay, so I echo the sentiments of Councilmember Yazoo, because I was also there at the funeral for Miss Betty. And then in addition to that, I want to talk about the certified welcoming report. A couple months ago, we brought it to the council that Welcome America would do an audit on the city that would require a self-assessment component, but also they would assess us to ensure or to evaluate us on how inclusive we are to everybody that lives here and all people. And so the certified welcoming is truly just that. So it's an assessment based off standards that identify potential policies and programs to make sure that we're inclusive in nature. Some of the standards include government leadership, civic engagement, equitable access, education, connected communities, economic development, and safe communities. The score that we receive is 31 out of 45 of the criteria. The two areas that we were deemed the most on, or we still have areas of improvement, are government leadership and safe communities. And some of the things that were said as it relates to government leadership is just more training. And as it relates to safe communities, making sure that we have materials and education campaigns centered around for everybody in the community so they understand public safety as well as code enforcement. With a 69% score, we need to do an action plan to at least get up to the 90th percentile to meet all the criteria to be a certified welcoming city. The thing that, out of the whole overall report that was given to us, the one thing that was significant or that I was a little stunned by was under the equity, diversity, and inclusion section of the report. It indicated that basically the city of Clarkston needs to ensure that all residents, particularly those that have been marginalized, historically marginalized Black people, that they adequately have services that they can receive in the community, because one of the things, and they did approximately 18 interviews. So these are key stakeholders in the community, whether it's nonprofit leaders, city staff, as well as like business owners. And so what the nonprofits indicated was that they don't know where marginalized groups receive services, and so that is definitely a hole that we need to fix, because we need to be a city that's inclusive for all people, and be welcoming to all people. Thank you.
Very good. All right. Thank you, council members. Just two things to report on. Vice Mayor Yasu, City Manager Gomez, and I were at the Capitol this morning, this early afternoon for Dekalb Municipal Association Day. We met with the Dekalb House and Senate delegation. There is, as you heard last meeting, there is no annexation bills for us. So we were there mainly to build relationships, also talk about two particular pieces of legislation that would impact cities. Number one, there is a bill that would preempt all local control over building codes. And so, currently the state has standards, but local municipalities and counties can adopt more energy efficient building codes, for instance. So that is one piece of legislation that the Georgia Municipal Association is asking us to contact our legislatures on. Representative Henson, Drenner, and Senator Henson, I think, are supportive of those issues. So I think we're covered from Clarkston, but we were there nonetheless. And then the other thing that might affect Clarkston in the future, there is another bill that would, again, preempt local regulation over rental properties. And so this is more of an issue related to Airbnbs and sort of like Atlanta, for instance, or like in Savannah. But they believe that the way the legislation is written, that it would broadly impact all individual rental and even some regulation of just other kind of properties. I don't know if you am I getting that right?
We dealt with one already.
Yeah, right.
That had to do with a company called Pad Split, where they acquired a property in a single family NR1 district, and then were essentially looking to convert it into a boarding house. They don't call it that. They call them memberships, and it's an alternative for workforce low-income housing, which is an option for that. But it's just not allowed. They would like for this preemption of local control so that they could open up their pad splits wherever they see fit. Currently, zoning laws, like our zoning law, prohibits it in an NR1 residential. So that's an example of what the mayor was alluding to that we've already dealt with.
Yeah, exactly. And so, if you've been at the Capitol, and some of y'all members of the council have been up here the last several years, there is a more of a trend of the state legislature taking away powers that local governments have. It's called preemption. It becomes a problem, particularly when it comes to zoning issues, obviously, as well as some of these building standards as well. I want to thank you, Vice Mayor Yasu, for mentioning Miss Betty Hassan Amin. She's one of the first people that I met when I came to Clarkston. In her lovely flyer, program of her, in her at her funeral, there was a section there about her being an advocate for accessibility in Clarkston. And that, if you knew Betty, I mean, that was one of the things that she really talked about for many, many years, is improving the sidewalks and the ADA accessibility. And I think in it, it was acknowledged that she was, I think, very instrumental in encouraging the council and showing there was a lot of public support behind using some of our Splost funds, infrastructure funds, to do almost 30 improvement sort of road crossings, ADA crossings, crosswalks, and other improvements. And so I did want to put out potential for some sort of recognition of Miss Betty Amin and the work that she did, because she really was a really important part of the community. I think her passing was kind of sudden for some of us. I don't think we knew that her health had declined. And we'll definitely be open to hearing from the public or from the community if there's any sort of honor we can recognize her with, whether it would be something related to what we're doing with streetscapes, public art kind of thing, but any idea y'all have would be welcome. And I want to encourage us to think about how we can do some sort of memorial for her, because we really, really appreciate folks like her who just keep pushing and keep asking, keep trying to make changes, and don't stop until we get them. So thank you, Miss Betty Hassan Amin. We appreciate you. All right, that concludes the mayor's report, and we'll open it up for public comment. And just keep it to about 3 minutes, please, and come on over here.
Okay, well, I'm going to start now. My name's Tracy Bishop. I live at 1050 Nielsen Drive, Clarkston, Georgia. And as I left, I believe it was in March of last year, I made a statement that I'm a tax-paying property owner in this town, and you people need to give me some respect. Well, that was a joke that night. But I want to first welcome you two ladies. I stayed away from the last meeting intentionally so y'all would enjoy your coronations. But now it's time to crank things up again. Because, seriously, I had filed a report, I believe it's over a year and a half ago, with the sitting council at the time about the mayor's unethical use of the internet. And that goes from ways he addressed people on Nextdoor, which he has since gone back and deleted, to well, currently, he is using can spam, I believe. It's when you take somebody's email address from, let's say, your actionnetwork.org email list, and you start sending them emails from Mayor Ted. I think it's for the Ted Terry for Georgia campaign. And then it comes to something which, oh, where is it? You see, when I was looking for it, I passed by, because this is all about Clarkston, Georgia, USA. Y'all remember once, maybe twice, I used to say, what does bring home the bacon mayor mean? I asked about quid pro quo. I asked about what does the UN expect from the mayor of Clarkston for free trips around the world? Well, and I don't believe one of the mayor's powers, I was checking the code when I was here, is to be the city's PIO. I don't believe that's in his address. I know he said on Nextdoor he thought his job was to, what was it? Raise Clarkston? I don't remember. I think it was, but anyway, here we go. Clarkston, Georgia, USA, along with my fellow U.S. mayoral delegations, are committed to seeing our nation's leadership and role in this global challenge. Now, we're referring to the migrant crisis. This is the Quito conference where he was sending this note back from. So he is basically stating that Clarkston is taking part in the UN's Global Compact for Migration. Now, I had asked before, especially when the mayor had chosen to take on, I believe it was Nathan Deal, about the ban of Syrian refugees. I had asked the council. Diane Leonetti at the time confirmed that the city council had not authorized such statements from Mayor Terry. But Mayor Terry went ahead and made them and set Clarkston's agenda. That can't possibly be. Okay, well, I would like y'all to investigate the mayor's unethical use of the internet, people's email addresses, statements he makes on behalf of the city, unauthorized statements for his own personal and political gain. And if he chooses to stay past March, I would expect you all to publicly investigate what he's been doing in the city's name to benefit his own person. I've requested this before. Nobody answered me. I will make the submission to you ladies. To be fair, you've never seen these documents before. I will provide them to you. I will provide them to all of you again. I expect an answer this time, though. And you were given them in February of last year. I handed them to you at that dais, right there where you sit now. I expect an answer from this body about his unethical behavior. Thank you. Oh, gosh, I need those. Because, oh, yeah, this is talking about our cops being white supremacists. Yeah. It ain't perfect.
You guys, you don't know where you can take somebody mental in the hospital? You need medication. Okay. Oh my God, this is too much. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager, and our community. Okay, today I was not happy. I was going around the Clarkston and I saw a lot of trash. And the people you are giving them work here, like a construction, they have to know how to clean the place. They are just, when they drink their water or eating something, they drop the papers everywhere. And I took the video. All those construction working here, they are waiting public works to collect their trash. Well, they can clean themselves their trash. And city council member. Before we used to have a city council member who used to go around like weekends, or sometimes when they come from work, just go around. It's better you to go around and see how trash it is. Because I'm not gonna collect even trash for the construction people. I can collect the trash which maybe somebody dropped from his car or in the street, the children, but not the construction who are taking a lot of money here. So please, City Council, Mayor, already I talked to City Manager today. That was not good. Yes, thank you.
Good evening, Clarkson citizens, business owners, Mayor, Councilman. My name is Mark. This is my business partner, Dominique King. Okay, well, I came here today because I know we've been discussing, well, I'm the owner, this is my business partner of the Doghouse Restaurant and Lounge. I came here today because I know we've been part of a couple one-sided discussions about what we have going on, what we've been doing over there at the Doghouse. All right, first I want to say, as far as like anybody who ever owned a business, opened up a business, you know the first year to the second year is always the hardest times of the business. So I want to appreciate you guys for giving us the extra hours y'all did for, allow us to stay an extra hour or two later because they helped us out a lot. Because we was on the way of really trying to sell the business, stuff like that. Anyway, getting to the point that I want to get to. All right, when y'all guys gave us the extra hours, y'all put in the policy that we must have the officers there, to go the extra hours or something like that. All right, so that's no problem. Like I said, we've been working hand-in-hand with law enforcement our whole time as far as like doing our job before we open the business as far as security and stuff like that. Have no problem with law enforcement and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? And having the officers there at the business, it helped us out a lot. We have no problem with it. We was going to do it anyway, so it was good. But the problem we ran into recently was, okay, that was Christmas night, was our officer that was supposed to be on duty was called. He told us he was going to be late. That night, he wound up not showing up. You know, it's Christmas night, so you already know how, you know, everybody's off work, everybody's out. And he did not show up, so one of the sergeants, I forget what his name is, Bletcher, Sergeant Bletcher, he's been on our tail about, you know, just about everything. And I feel like it's been a problem because of we're not using Clarkston's PD as our police detail, which is no problem. It wasn't no personal problem. It was when we first started doing it, there wasn't enough officers. Nobody wanted to take on the job. There wasn't enough officers to do it. Then when we finally had an officer, he wasn't consistent, so he wasn't coming. So that forces us to have to close at a certain time. You know what I'm saying? So we at the mercy of the officer anytime, you know, he decides, or anything, you know, it's life. So we're not complaining about that. But my thing, like, it got to the point now, to his point, like, where Clarkson PD, we feel like it's targeting us and coming at us harder because we're not using their PD, because I never had any run-ins with Clarkson. So there's no way that we should be bumping heads because I don't know them personally. And I really feel like that's the reason why that we've been getting that amount of pressure put on us, for as like, it even get deeper than that, for them sending the code enforcement to come and check on us, and even came out her mouth one day, I don't know if she gonna admit it, that hey, they want me to come here and find anything wrong that y'all doing to, you know, shut y'all down. Because it gets to the point now, I'm not going to back down either my partner. We're men. We're real men. So anytime a problem comes, we're going to face it. And, yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say, you know what I'm saying? And like I say, I appreciate y'all for getting us some extra hours because that saved our business a lot. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not coming here today to, you know, try to force y'all to change anything. It's perfect or whatever. But I do want just a little understanding. I just want more understanding on how things work in life. Because if an officer decides not to come or something goes on, he has something going on with his kids, which is understandable. But that caused us to lose so much money and end it so quick. Because now we got to the point now to where our customers only come like around 2:30. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, stuff like that. So if he don't show up 3 o'clock, we got to end it. You know, and that's really why I wanted to come through and say that. So, you know, I'm open to any questions or whatever y'all have for me.
Where is your establishment?
It's off of East Ponce.
What is the address?
It's 4622 East Ponce de Leon, Suite G.
It's fresh.
The Super Fresh Plaza.
Oh, okay.
So what are you asking us? What is your bottom line? What's the question?
I just really wanted to shine some light on what we're dealing with, because it's a battle between us and the local PD. And it's not the whole PD, because some of your officers are great for some of the other officers that I have met. The understanding, they talk, you know what I'm saying, we can communicate, we get to the understanding point. But there's a few officers like Sergeant Bletcher, and we have your chief over here, which they work hand in hand. That's the only two people I come into contact with, or my partner come in contact with. And it's not on a professional level, especially from the chief. It is not an understanding that we're not getting to. Because what I want to understand is we're not trying to go outside of no guidelines. We're not trying to beat y'all in no type of way. You feel what I'm saying? We want to last. We want our business to last longer. You feel what I'm saying? So we doing everything that y'all asked us to do in, you know what I'm saying, in the guidelines, in the policies that y'all want us to, to do it by. And I just wanted to really come in today and shine light on what we're battling right now. Because as a business owner, I never had this many run-ins with law enforcement in my whole life until I opened this business over here.
Yeah.
I even was pulled over before. Yeah. And was told, oh, I don't know you. Show me your ID. Why am I showing you my ID? Well, if you don't show it, I'm going to arrest you for obstruction.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate those comments. We're committed to treating everyone fairly, and we appreciate you being willing to work with us to make sure that we're following all the codes and doing everything by the books. So let's just keep working together, okay?
I'm trying to get there. I mean, we're not, at this point, we don't feel like we're not working together. I'm trying to get there.
All right, we're going to keep
like I said, I even put in a request for a mediation.
Okay.
Between the chief, the sergeant, and us, business owners. But come to find out, I guess y'all did a lot of changing and moving around, so we had the wrong email when we emailed or whatever.
Okay.
But I would like to set that up because I want to see, like, where is the problem? Because on our end, it's no problem.
Okay.
But we need to get to a common ground because we want our business to last. And if we're going against the PD, I feel like I'm not going to win that battle.
Yeah, I understand. Good. Thank you for coming here. Appreciate that.
I just have a question on our law there. Does it have to be a police officer? Can it be a security guard?
No, it has
No,
to
it
be.
We have security.
It has to be a sort of like an actual police officer, yes.
Police officer,
Like
okay.
Dekalb.
Certified.
I have no problem.
But it could be
I have no
Dekalb.
problem with that.
Okay.
I have no problem with the police officer
have
being
to
there.
be certified,
But I
right?
just want, like, just business wise, if he does not show up, I have to stop my operation.
Yeah.
But all my employees must be paid. Everything must be paid. Bills still coming. Nobody gives me a break when I come to that block, And
Yeah,
that's
I
where the
understand.
understanding comes. You feel what I'm saying? It's like it gives them too much power, which I don't mind it. I'm not asking y'all to change anything about it. Just have more understanding on what goes on. I worked in security for almost 10 years right before we opened this. I'm talking about to the day y'all gave us the business, we got the business license. That's when the day we stopped doing security.
Yeah.
So we work hand in hand with the law enforcement all that time. So no problem with that. But it just, y'all got to have a little better understanding on life. And things happen and things come up.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, and having the police details, nothing. I can't just call 911 and say, hey, I need another one, because you got to set it up.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you for those comments. Appreciate it.
Warren Hadlock, West Smith Street. Mayor Terry, you're safe. I'm not going to say anything bad about you. I wanted to say kudos to City Manager Robin Gomez for taking care of Jack and Karen's issue out in front of their house, right behind City Hall, and doing it so swiftly and responsively. I think a lot of people appreciate that. It got quite a bit of coverage on Nextdoor, I know, and the way it was handled got some good coverage too. I also wanted to say, although I have several gripes about the Friendship Forest master plan implementation, the place looks overall great compared to what it has. I have some concerns going forward, but as far as it looking too open, the reason it looked so cluttered before was because it was a thicket of invasive species, and you had to do what you did in order. You virtually have to start with a clean slate, and so the pavement going in looks great. Just coming from somebody who really doesn't like hard surfaces in green space that much, but it's a great trail. I'm really enjoying it with my dog, and I think we're going to maybe have to have a law against skateboards. I don't know that they're going to be that many or not, but I know I can just looking at it going downhill from Clark Street or coming downhill from East Ponce. It's going to be an issue if kids start using skateboards. So you may want to put that in the list of prohibitions for it. And anyhow, that's about it. I look forward to getting with Lisa and Ann McCormick and doing some ongoing good stuff there. Thank you.
Chris Busing, 20-year resident of Clarkston. Right now, I feel more than at any other time in 20 years living in Clarkston that we will have a city council that can make excellent policy. We may even start to have good government in Clarkston. This will take a long time to sink in to the minds of most people because most Americans and many from foreign lands have never seen good government. One of the best things that happened in Clarkston city government in the last couple of years is the expansion of the committee system, small groups of citizens who inform the council and city management with intelligence reports for direction in the city policy. There is so much potential here. Even with the new council pay raises from $3,500 to $12,000 per year, where the council members should be expected to work harder, the committee system can greatly inform their discretion for good policy and projects. In the future, I hope that citizens and council members will be involved in dialogue that contains controversy. We should not shrink from controversy. But in my dreams, our dialogue and controversy will graduate to a higher level. Our heated arguments will be about philosophical directions of where our city is going, not putting out fires over who is making backroom deals for pork barrel projects or entities trying to take over our city through covert means. I hope that in Clarkston's future, we can stay as far away as possible from the ugly extremes that governments tend to manifest. As George Washington summed up so well, government is not eloquence, it is not reason, it is force. And like fire, it is a fearful servant and a dangerous master. Never for a moment should it be left to irresponsible action. Most important for our city council members is to keep in mind when deliberating on that hot stage after 4 hours of meeting time wearing you out, when in doubt about a piece of legislation, vote no. If you find after your no vote to have been wrong, the harm you caused will be minimal, because that particular legislative initiative can be picked back up at some time in the future. But the damage caused in casting a bad yes vote because you didn't think it through well enough can be catastrophic. All politics is local. Our national well-being does not come from the top down. It does not come from the nation's capital. All the good that can come to our country in these difficult times must come from the bottom up. Good government does not trickle down. It trickles up. If we can't make it happen in Portland, Maine, Ossining, New York, Cimarron, New Mexico, or in Clarkston, Georgia, then we ain't never going to make it happen in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of fun yet to be had in Clarkston with making it a shining star, a model of good government in Georgia. I am talking about a spit-shine polish on every area of our city, from city streetscapes to youth programs and a city court that does not violate people's rights. Thank you.
Let me begin by offering my heartfelt apology to this body for my inappropriate outburst at last week's work session. It was unprofessional of me. I offer again my apology. Hope each of you will accept that, and I will strive to do better. Second, I'd like to say how fine our downtown is looking with the streetscape projects coming to fruition. I look forward to seeing those when they are finished, and I think it's just a testament to all of the work that was done by members of this council and previous councils and city managers to make that happen. I want to reiterate and reinforce what Warren Hadlock said, to thank the city administration for quickly removing the concrete pad that was at the corner of Rowland and Market. The site, except for the fact that it doesn't have grass on it, looks like that never happened. And that was done perhaps in one day. So kudos to city administration. And finally, I don't think Beverly is here. Perhaps she was here earlier. But she is one of the shining lights in our community, and she passed a milestone last week. She got to ring the bell to mark the end of her chemotherapy treatments. And so I hope Beverly is watching at home, and we just congratulate her for reaching that point.
Thank you all very much for those comments. All right, we'll close public comments, and we have a few items in the old business section. Item F1, confirming the city attorney. And I think we heard from Mr. Quinn at the work session, but if there's anything else to add to this? If not, we'll just go and open the floor for a motion on the confirmation of the city attorney.
Have a motion.
Okay.
Well, I will state it first.
Move first.
That's all right. I move that we appoint the city attorney for the period of January 1st to 2020 to December 31st to 2020.
Second.
All right, motion is second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving our city attorney, Mr. Quinn, and his law firm, Wilson Morton Downs. Raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you, sir, for another year of service you signed up for. All right, item F2, confirmation of the auditor. And I think, again, we talked about the auditor at the work session, and everyone agrees we're good on Malden and Jenkins being our auditor again in 2020. So I'll open the floor for a motion on that item.
I move that we confirm the auditor.
Okay.
I second it.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. All right, item F3, confirmation of the judge, and we have Mr. Judge David Will here. Are you, come on up to the, whatever microphone works, maybe that one, it's a little closer. You can go closer there. And yeah, so, you know, Judge Will, you've been with us, this is going to the third year? Is that right?
This will be my fourth year.
Into the fourth year, excuse me. And so, and then of course, I think you also have helped, you've added some and given some input onto the item G1, the resolution for municipal court policies. So, so yeah, would love to hear from you just about how you think things are going, you know, what you want to accomplish in 2020, and we can, you know, pause for any questions from the council if we need that.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Gomez, Ms. Ashby, Mr. Quinn, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Will, and I am honored to be the municipal court judge for the city of Clarkston. This finishes a 3-year term I've had. It's been quite a run, and I enjoy it every day. Clarkston's municipal court is actually a busy little court. In 2019, we had 12 days where we did code enforcement cases and trials. We had 35 days where we did arraignments. And then on some of those days, we had first appearance hearings as well. But we also had 35 more days throughout the year where we did first appearance hearings as well, for a total of 70 days of court sessions in 2019. You should know that you are blessed to have an outstanding lady back here by the name of Dorothy Jackson, who is your court clerk. And she and the staff that she have, they have servants' hearts. And they keep your court running efficiently, and it is an exceptionally well-run program, and you have her to thank for it. Second, your police department, with Chief Hudson and Deputy Chief Hess, they should be commended. They are just top-notch folks. And one thing, when you read the articles in the paper about other courts, for instance, the AJC talks about how many no-shows they have in Atlanta Municipal Court. Thousands of cases get dismissed each year because their officers don't show up. And not once in the 3 years that I've been the judge here has one case been dismissed because an officer didn't show up. The one thing that kind of sets all of us together is we recognize that no one wants to be in our court. They get an invitation to come. It's not that they choose to come. So we freely accommodate their needs as best we can. We recognize they want to be treated with respect, they want to be heard, and they want to be dealt with fairly. And we believe we're second to none in doing that. We want to get it right, and we want to be right. Now, backing up a little bit more about me, this is my 40th year of practicing law. I was at the Attorney General's office for 9 years, been in private practice ever since. And my colleagues, after I became a judge, appointed me to the Executive Council of the State Council of Municipal Court Judges. And then each year they've asked me to go back, and with training from the National Judicial Council, they have me teach new judges on how to be a judge and on some areas of the law. We do it right, but that doesn't mean we can't be better. And so we're always open for suggestions on how anybody wants to think we can do better. Ms. Bell, you asked a question about the alcohol and drug abuse, and let me want to focus on two things. Number one, about some of those DUI cases. I had 2 of them yesterday, and one of those individuals, that's his 3rd DUI in less than 5 years. On the alcohol and drug cases, the same sergeant that gentleman was complaining about actually took it upon himself to send an email and said, I arrested a lady last night, and she told me that she has a drug problem and wants drug treatment. Ms. Jackson then sends the email to me and says, you're going to see this lady in court this afternoon. She was still so strung out the next day. I couldn't take a plea from her because she was not competent to give it. But what she told me was, because she confirmed what Sergeant Bolter told there, and that is, I want treatment. And she said, can you help me get treatment? And I said, yes, ma'am, I'll do it. And we sat here and we went through where she got treatment, who she had been to see. And so by the time we next see each other, I've made a referral to her, made arrangements for her to get residential treatment at St. Jude's in Atlanta. And so every single month, we have cases that have substance abuse or mental health issues. And we try to deal with that. It's almost as much a social worker's court sometimes as it is administration of justice, because we're looking at making sure they have a place to stay, helping them get employment, writing job references for them, keeping them on the job so that they don't lose a job if we send them to jail. But getting mental health and substance abuse treatment has been one of the big keys for us. And so from a standpoint of what we do, we think we treat everybody fairly, and we think we do as best we can under the circumstances. Like I said, if you think we can do better, we aim to we're open for suggestions, and we want to do it right, and we want to continue to make you proud, because I think we get as much in the way of compliments on how people feel that they were treated than anything else. So with that being said, how else can we help you? What questions do you have for us? And by all means, feel free to come.
Okay.
And if you want to come to court and let us and see the different sessions of how different things work, you know, we've got a top-notch people here from code enforcement. Come to a code enforcement day so that you can hear your citizens tell you what they think about the ordinance you passed. Or come to a first appearance hearing or probation hearing where we talk to these individuals one-on-one, standing right there in front of by themselves, where they get to just open up and say what they need. And then finally, look at the arraignments or trials. Come see, and if you think we can do better, tell us how we can do better. With that being said, Mr. Simon.
Okay, good. Okay. How do you deal with the language issues and the diversity of?
We have a policy in place that's this. We follow what the municipal court uniform rules talk about how you get interpreters. It was changed from a year ago. On preliminary matters, when we can deal with the language line, we do that. All of the cases, when we know in advance, we get an interpreter in that language for them. As you may know, there are a lot of people in this community who feel very strongly that they would rather have a trusted member of the family or somebody trusted to speak with them. And we don't mind doing that, but if I see someone answering the question and not the person who's the defendant answering the question, I'm not going to proceed with that. But we offer American Sign Language. You know, we've had people show up more than one time. But under the current uniform rules, we've developed a policy where you can request it ahead of time. Sometimes the police officers note we need an interpreter in whatever language they may note, and we get Ms. Jackson and her staff get the interpreters for us. We use certified interpreters, and the only time we use the language line is for preliminary matters. We think that works best. We unfortunately have actually had the case where if someone doesn't show up, the city has to pay the cost of that interpreter, because sometimes they have like a 2-hour reporting fee even if they don't show. So sometimes we incur those costs unnecessarily, but we give interpreters whenever we feel is necessary. And we've had this problem, the city prosecutor will tell you, we've had people come from the audience and say, hey, that person's not doing it right. And we've had 2 or 3 people up there trying to interpret the language because they may disagree with how the interpretation's going. But at the same time, you know, bottom line is we're following the uniform municipal court rules on what it's doing. And we think that works fairly.
Thank you. I actually have just more of a comment, and I want to say thank you so much for the service that you give the city. I have been to the court and just to observe, and I really felt like I mean, I'm sure you are a fair person, but I just observed how you do it in action, and I want to say thank you. And this resolution that we have is pretty much just to codify what I believe you are already doing, and just make sure we have it in, codified, and I certainly feel like you will put those in action and continue the good work that you're doing.
Thank you on behalf of the staff and everybody there. Thank you. We try and do it right, and we appreciate you coming by.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
One question I did have is, have you had a chance to look at this resolution and see if you had any thoughts on it?
It incorporates the changes I sent to Mr. Quinn and Mr. Gomez. For instance, one of the sections talks about letting people know about affidavit or indigence. And the way it was first drafted, it was going to be served with the summons. And I'm an environmentalist. And so I said, okay, if you're going to take this affidavit and give that to every defendant who gets a citation, it's going to end up on the streets. It's going to end up McDonald's wrappers. And then we're going to have to cut down a forest to have the rest of them here. So I said, why not just say it, we'll make it available to you. And so we'll have them here in paper form, but put it on the website too. So it's available if they need it, but not give them each one, because we have people show up that they don't even bring their tickets because they've lost debt. And so I think it's more effective to do that. So Mr. Gomez and Mr. Quinn gave me an opportunity to comment on some of those things. Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. Appreciate it. All right, I will open the floor for a motion on the confirmation of our Judge Will.
I have a motion to approve for the contract of municipal judge.
Okay. All right.
With
All right, got a motion and a second?
Yeah.
All right.
David C. Will.
All right, any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the motion, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion approved. All right. Thank you, Judge. All right, next item, confirmation of the solicitor, and we have Mr. Christopher Dewan here. Thank you, sir, for being here. Come on up. Yes, and same thing, introduce yourself and just, tell us what you've been working on, and if you have any, thoughts on the municipal court policies or anything we've been talking about up here, please share those thoughts.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Christopher Dewan. I've been here same amount of time as the judge here. I've been about 3.5 years going on. Started out with a different board, and it's been a lot of changes, and I think it's been for a good thing. We started out, when the judge and I started, we had 5 days of court. One of them was a trial day that lasted from 8 o'clock in the morning until about 6 o'clock at night, and it was complete chaos. We had a number of people who didn't know what was going on. We didn't have the issues where cases were being talked at beforehand. Everything went to trial, and no one really knew what was going on. Well, I have to say that after 3 years, we're down to 4 days, and most of the time people come in here, unless something extraordinary goes on, they can be in and out of here in approximately 2 hours, which we think is great, and it goes to the good police work and the way the staff has been efficient, where we're taking cases where people want to get in and out. They sometimes want to get on a payment plan. They don't understand what's going on, or they just need time to want to go to court. So instead of sitting around all day, we get them in and out, and we tried to make the best of it. We've also changed the way over time that we dealt with the public defender. We are in a unique community, and we have to realize that a lot of times what we're doing is the people come in here and they just don't understand. And I cannot sit here and tell them, and the judge cannot explain the law to them. So instead of going through the process of what most normal courts do, which is you have to qualify for certain things to get to that point, we said, hey, if you don't understand what's going on, I can't tell you what a simple plea is. I don't want to misinterpret it or give you advice that I cannot give. You can speak to the public defender. And we will end up spending a lot more time on cases that, no, the person is not going to jail. No, the person doesn't really seek any penalty, but we want them to understand what's going on. And I think that's made a big change. The other thing we've done is, I think the judge talked about where a lot of times with interpreters we have family members come in. Well, a lot of those cases we said, hey, yes, it's a small charge. I don't want to explain it. Judge doesn't want to explain it, and you need time to really understand it. Why don't you speak to public defender and let you have the time? That way, they're handling the case out there, and I can deal with other people. People can come in and out. And I think that's been a big change in the community. I think the other big change we've seen is the code enforcement. That calendar used to be a lot longer, and we used to see a lot more egregious things. We saw basically forests, like they talk about in a number of residents where it's health issues. We saw a number of properties falling apart. And for a long time, it would just keep on coming to court. So I've sort of changed the policy where we reward people for making the changes. We don't automatically give them tickets and make them do fines. We make them come back to court over and over again so they fix the problem.
Yeah.
And like I tell everyone who comes into code enforcement, I don't want to see you come back here. I'm not seeking to get a fine. I don't make any money. We want to see the community look better. Right. And I think we've seen the code enforcement numbers go down because of that. I think that the community has seen the change and see that we're trying to make the community better. And I speak to a number of business owners said, yes, I understand why you're doing this. Clarkson was one way for so many years, but I love the way Clarkson is getting better. And I think that's part of what we've seen over time, where people appreciate the fact that we're doing our best to make the community better. We're not trying to just give you a fine. We want to see it better.
Fantastic. Very good. Very good. Thank you for that. Yes, yeah, go ahead. Questions?
Thank you. How often you recommend cases to the public defender? Did the people ask themselves, or you recommend them?
More times than not, I usually recommend them because they don't really, most of the people who have coming in don't really understand their rights. So, again, this is a unique community where most other places people come in and they know they need an attorney. A lot of people come from other countries where they're not entitled to attorneys, they don't have any rights. So instead of going and having them fill out something or waiting for them to ask me, if I see something come in where they face possible jail time or even losing their license. Actually, that is one of the criteria. If we think that someone's going to lose their license, we just automatically send them to public defender because we don't want to be in a position where something happens that can affect their livelihood, and we didn't at least give them a chance to talk to someone.
Is it a large number? I mean, how many cases do you think? I mean, is it?
It varies. You know, if depending on the day, if you're looking at for no insurance or things along those lines, it can be up to 15 cases in a court session, but it can be as little as 2, but it just depends on what type of tickets come in that day.
Thank you.
Mr. Santander, the public defender, Frank Gaither, is here tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
We'll have you come up next. Yeah, we'll have you go next. Thank you. All right. Anything else?
One other question I had is just the same question as the judge. If you've had a chance to review the resolution to tonight, and if you had any thoughts on the proposed changes.
I've taken a look at it, and I've spoken to Mr. Quinn about a couple thoughts I might have to change and tweak it and make it a little bit better, a little bit more compliant with the law in general. The overall idea is great, but just we've talked about some of the wording, and that's more of a legal thing than anything else.
Okay. All right.
Happy to answer any other questions anyone may have.
Yeah, and any other questions? Okay. Well, I think so at the work session we discussed, we have 2 new council members, and we've discussed our intention to, to really just run the most compassionate municipal court in all of Georgia, and so what we agreed to at the work session would be to have the contract, the agreement be through May 5th, 2020. Because we want everyone on the council who has not had a chance to come and observe court, as Judge Will suggested, to do that. It's not anything personal to you. It's just us doing our due diligence and making sure that we all have sort of that firsthand, account when we come back at the May council meeting to, extend the contract or, whatever may happen. So, so you're good with this contract that we have laid out here?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. I get that right? Everyone good with that? Okay, very good. So, yeah, thank you, Christopher. Appreciate you being here, and thank you for sharing that. And thank you for your hard work. So, yeah, I'll open the floor for a motion on the confirmation of the solicitor through May 5th, 2020.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I move that we approve the contract for municipal court solicitor service with Christopher Dewan from January 1st, 2020 until May 5th, 2020.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, thank you, Christopher. All right, and then before we get on to the new business, so we did discuss at the work session, whether the council would want to take on the public defender as a confirmation. And did you? I'm sorry. Can you just remind everyone what we have to do there?
So the question that came up at the work session is, well, first off, the way it's been operating is that our municipal judge is appointing the public defender. And the question that the council had was, can the city do that directly? So I looked into it and found that Georgia law allows either approach. They're both legal. I checked with Georgia Municipal Association to see if one way or the other is considered a best practice. They said, no, we don't have a position on that. Either one's fine. So there you have it.
Okay, very good. So we discussed at the work session we wanted Mr. Frank Gaither Jr. to come here and just introduce himself. Because probably haven't all had a chance to meet you. I think we may have encountered your father before that. But same situation, tell us what you've been working on. I know you're relatively newer, so we don't expect a ton of stuff. But tell us more about yourself. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at this resolution as well, so you have any thoughts on those. And then, just your interest in continuing to be the public defender here in Clarkston.
Sure, absolutely. First, I'd like to bring greetings from my dad, Frank Gaither Sr. He was the public defender, and he had to step down in April of last year, and I stepped in his shoes in May due to his health. And being his oldest son, I made him retire. It's in his best interest. And so I bring greetings on his behalf to the council members, Mayor, Mr. Gomez, again, Madam Clerk, council, and members and excuse me, visitors of the city. So I've assumed his duties as of May, June of 2019. And of course, the public defender, I am I've been practicing law for 20 years. Half of my career has been criminal, where I tell people I put people in jail. I've gotten people out of jail, and I worked on appeals, and I worked at the Attorney General's office. The second half of my career has been civil. And so this opportunity really is, it gives me joy to be able to represent indigent clients or people who need help, especially in traffic court. The same type of joy it gives me when I go and volunteer at schools, okay? Because even though I'm used to dealing with heavy-duty felonies, when folks come in with a traffic ticket where they're looking at getting their license suspended based on very technical rules set by the Department of Driver Services, and oftentimes there are really very few options if, for example, once you get to like a 2nd and 5, 3rd and 5 driving on suspended license, and you've already exhausted a no-low plea, it's not much I can do for you other than counsel you in the back room as to this is where you are, this is what you're looking at, and I kind of help talk you through it. Because what that does, that creates a barrier for the prosecutor, because, yeah, he's barred from giving any type of legal advice. And then folks oftentimes come in and they want to tell their story. That's fine, but he's not the one you tell the story to. Then they want to tell the story to the judge. That's fine, you tell the story to the judge, but the judge can't give you advice, and that's what they're seeking. And so that's the type of services I've been providing. Like I said, and it brings me a tremendous amount of joy to be able to help people, because I already know that even though I don't want to say it's just a traffic ticket in comparison to something else, but to that person, it's the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got a couple of questions. First is, so in average, in every month, how often do you come to the court?
4 days out of the month.
So you come to all the...
Yes.
Okay. And another one is, how are you dealing with the cultural and language bridge barriers?
Oh, The very first thing that I do is when I meet with my potential client, we go in the back. If they have a family member or a friend or someone they brought with them that wants to assist them, then we'll have a little conversation, you know, a discreet conversation. Hey, look, do you understand English? Do you understand what I'm telling you? Would you feel more comfortable speaking through the person who's with you? Some people will tell me, I speak very little or no English. Okay. And if they don't have someone with them, we need to get an interpreter. Okay. If they do have a family member, friend, loved one that can interpret for them, oftentimes they'll say, you know, we're able to get a few words out, and then I can speak through them, through the family member, the interpreter. But if it gets to the point where we talk in the back, and then if I make the professional decision that I don't think you're really understanding what I'm telling you or advising you, because even in traffic court, like I said, the penalties can be very harsh and severe on missteps. And, you know, if you plead guilty, not guilty, or even if you plead nolo, if you use your nolo, if you don't really understand why you're here, what your next steps are, that needs to be laid out. So I would ask for an interpreter. Or sometimes, like Your Honor already said, I've been in the back, spoke with people, thought we had a plea, I thought we understood, and then we come out, and then all of a sudden, I mean, that happens, you know, defense lawyers, all of a sudden, you know, your client, you look and say, wait a minute, I thought we had an understanding. So, okay, yeah, we need to take a time out, because, yeah, we need to get an interpreter here.
So, your contact for the defendant is only that day, court day?
Yes.
Can they call you?
Yes, they can call me. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, if someone calls me and it's a new case, for example, we have a calendar tomorrow. Mm-hmm. If someone calls me right now, I can talk to you, but the context of the conversation is going to be extremely limited because I don't have a ticket, don't know what you're charged with, don't have any paperwork in front of me. If it is a situation where someone has come to court for an arraignment date, and then even for strategic reasons, we say, look, let's plead not guilty, let you come back on a trial calendar, give you some time to get your paperwork together, get this together. Yeah, call me. And then, because I already have everything, so we can kind of build the case. And when you come back, either we can enter a guilty plea based on the evidence that you brought, or we may have to consider other options.
One of the question is, when someone that you are defending, you come to court and challenge the prosecutor. Is that how it works?
Oh yeah, that's my job, to protect to protect my client. The first thing is let me say my first role is that of a messenger. Okay, so when I come to court, I'm appointed a case. My role is to get the ticket, go through the ticket, if there's a police report, I'm going to read the report, and we speak in the back, and I'm going to read the report to the person so they'll know this is what the police is saying you did wrong, because that's the most important thing, because it's the state's burden to prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. So this is what they're saying you did wrong. So now after I read this to you now, let's talk, and then let me advise you, and then if there are any legal defenses, if there are any factual defenses, I'll come back out and then have a negotiation with the state, with the prosecutor, and sometimes we can work it out, sometimes we can't.
Yeah, with the limited time you have, which is, and it's a short time to, how do you get, believe that this person is innocent or guilty? I mean, you don't have, most of the time, people don't bring, facts they defend, or just the interpreter tell you, or he told you, but when you come back to court, you don't have much of it to defend the person other than what he said or what the interpreter said. Other than that, making a deal with the, with the district attorney or the judge and saying, well, we, just reduce the sentence so he's not guilty. Or just, I'm just kind of a little bit, a person that doesn't know much of the language in English, and either your brother interpreter or somebody in his relative, and therefore you only have a limited time to understand the whole thing.
Sure.
This all you're doing is arbitration with the judge and the solicitor general. Maybe he's that person was was innocent, So how do you deal with the cases like that?
That's a great question, and I'll say this. Public defenders, we're trained to think on our feet. I started off in the public defender's office in Fulton County for burning pits and dealing with felonies, where it's almost a similar situation. You have a first appearance at the jail, instead of someone being charged with a DUI or entering on or a driving on suspended license, you're dealing with somebody charged with armed robbery or some other offense, major offense, and you have to have hey, look, we need to talk about bond or discuss preliminary hearing right now. And that's just the nature of the beast. Now, the reason I say that is because here in municipal court, most of your offenses are going to be, like I said, very technical in nature and what I would call strict liability almost. For example, driving with a suspended license. The thing is, either your license was suspended when the officer pulled you over that day, or it wasn't. Either your insurance was in effect that day, or it wasn't. And all the time when people tell me, look, we changed insurance, and I get it, because I know I'll drop my insurance company today and pick another one up tomorrow if it's a lower rate, and if they didn't transfer it over, so then we'll collect the information, and then Madam Clerk, Ms. Jackson, she will go and call the insurance company in the back and verify coverage. Sometimes it comes back legit that, yeah, they were covered on that day. Sometimes it comes back that, yeah, they picked up coverage like 10 minutes after the officer pulled them over. And so it's almost like a nature of the beast type of work that this is what we do. You have to be able to think on your feet on your smaller cases and then know when to slow the process down, saying, wait a minute, now the charge you're being charged with may have some more severe penalties, and we may need more facts, so we can't just rush you along, which is why the interpreter in a lot of those cases is extremely important.
And how do you handle the ability to pay?
Oh, I will always ask my clients, look, first let's see, can we work something out? Then let me see, can we work out the fine? Because it's all in negotiation. Some things can't be negotiated, some things can. Now, I'll ask my client, look, would you rather, could you pay a lower fine, or could you serve community service? Especially if you don't have a job, there's no point in me setting you up for failure for a fine when you don't even have a job yet. So maybe community service may be in your best interest, but it's your call. Remember, I told you I have to serve as a messenger, counselor, and sometimes just console you based on the news you get. So I always let my client be in the driver's seat as far as making the decision of whether they could pay a fine or community service or any type of alternative. And then, let me say this, but then that's still within the judge's discretion. We have to ask the judge, and then that's within the court's discretion.
So I know you might not have the exact number, but can you say what's the percentage of your ability so far for dismissal of cases?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
What is the percentage of the cases that you were able to get dismissed?
Get dismissed?
Right.
There have been a couple of dismissals. I do not have those numbers in front of me. And unfortunately, again, and you're just not going to, I'll speak from my experience in the cities I've been in various counties. In municipal courts, you're just not going to get a whole lot of dismissals. Simply because they're almost strict liability crimes. Either you were or you weren't, either you had the information on you, you didn't. And so it's very rare that you'll just get an out and out dismissal. Unless someone comes to court and says, look, I have the documents to prove this. I don't know why it didn't hit the system. And then those cases, you're able to present the evidence to the prosecutor. And he doesn't have a problem dismissing it if we can produce evidence.
Thank you.
I have a question, just general procedural. What is the biggest crime that would be tried in a municipal court before it gets referred to a higher court?
I would say DUI. DUIs, because I don't even think this court has jurisdiction to hear of vehicular homicide. Mm-hmm. But then those cases, and those are conversations I have to have with my client as well. Do you want to resolve your DUI case here in the city, or do you want to bind it over to the county? Then I have to have that conversation explaining the difference in the two, and you make the decision. If you want to have a jury trial, then you're going to have to bind it over. But again, as a messenger, this is the list you're looking at, and this is what you're looking at over here. And then if they ask me my advice, I give it.
And do they have a choice on that? If
Yes,
it's going to
absolutely. Because especially because I always want to make sure people understand you do have a right to a jury trial. That's the nature of, again, being a criminal defense lawyer.
Very good. Very good. All right, great questions. So I think at the work session we were kind of sort of in that mode of have council members come to a court session, sort of see everyone in action, and we don't have any action to take tonight. So I think the appropriate thing to do would be for the judge to work out the public defender for now, and if we come back for the May work session, the April before the May council meeting, work out, whether we just keep that as is or if we want to actually confirm it officially. That'd hopefully be enough time to sort of get some feedback and input, and we can decide by then. Does that sound good? Sounds good. Okay, very good. All right, Mr. Gaither, thanks so much for your service, and appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Take care.
All right. Okay, very good. That confirms the old business. Judge and solicitor and defender, y'all can be excused if you want to go home. Appreciate y'all hanging around. All right, so we got 2 items of new business. First is the resolution for the municipal court policies, which is what we were talking about a lot up here. And I will recognize Councilman Carroll, who brought this forward for discussion and for voting tonight.
As some of y'all may know, in this fall and winter of 2019, both the Southern Center of Human Rights and the Institute for Justice both put out letters and reports on Clarkston municipal procedures. And since that time, we've worked with both the Southern Center of Human Rights and the Institute of Justice to address some of the issues that they raised in terms of our municipal court procedures. And there were really 3 primary issues. The first is the indigency and ability to pay determinations. And so the first change we're making there is essentially requiring the court to inquire into individuals' ability to pay a fine before imposing the fine, so that they can determine if the individual actually has the ability to pay. And in some cases, they would provide a financial affidavit. If the party wants to state that they don't have the ability to pay, then they can fill out a financial affidavit for evidence of that. And then the other part of that is that if the court's going to turn it into community service, and they would reduce the fine first if the individual doesn't have the ability to pay, and then that individual can then serve that out through community service if they don't have the ability to actually make the monetary payments. So that resolution would allow people that don't have, perhaps the steady work or perhaps the amount of salary that, or hourly work that would allow them to pay the fines, to have alternative ways to work it out. The second issue was interpretive services, that in some cases, that I think there's been reference to tonight, that they use family members and other means to interpret. And in some cases, that may or may not be adequate. So we're creating more programs to allow individuals to have access to a certified interpreter for all criminal proceedings before municipal court, and to try to provide in-person interpreters when possible, when not possible, using the language line that we already have in place. And if that language line tells the court, that we don't think this person's understanding the procedure based on this interpretation, then we may need to reschedule to get an in-person interpreter. So that's the second issue. The third issue is good time credit. I think previously in just 1 or 2 cases, the court had stated that individuals should not be released from jail early for good time credit served. But under the law, that determination is required to be left to the DeKalb County Sheriff. So the resolution essentially makes that change. The court will not say you cannot get out early for good time served. Instead, the sheriff is going to determine ultimately when an individual is released for good time service or not. So those are the 3 primary changes. I don't think this is the last word necessarily for municipal procedure for code enforcement changes the council's going to look at, but I do think it's a good start to codify what the procedures are that the court is already trying to implement to hopefully improve and address some of the issues that the Southern Center for Human Rights and Institute for Justice raised. As to Clarkson.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Carroll. Any other questions or comments on this item?
The affidavit that a person would fill out for indigence, are we talking about a 1-page thing? How long physically? Since you mentioned the trees and paper, how much paper are we talking about?
The draft is 3
Okay.
We're going to try and see if we can give it to front and back,
Mm-hmm.
at least just one page. Front and back.
Okay. So I'd just like to recommend,
It's the same affidavit that would be if they want to request a public defender or reduction in the fine if they couldn't pay it all both.
okay, yeah, I would recommend, yeah, just issuing it automatically, as you say, you were like, only if they ask for it, but with our constituency here, I think one sheet of paper per trial, we could afford a couple of reams of paper a year for those, so automatically make it available. And even a sheet for interpretive services that just has 2 or 3 lines written in the 7 or 10 most common languages in Clarkston, so you can just see their own language written there and tune in on that and go, oh, this is where I can point and say, I need an interpreter.
Yeah, okay.
Because I do think it's very, very dangerous using family members. I work at the School of Medicine. We have an awful lot of medical students who practice here at Clarkson Community Center and other local areas, and we've had a similar situation where if you have a Nepali student and who's working there, they're in their 4th year of medical school, and you have a patient who comes in and is Nepali, and the only person who speaks that language is the student, it's just been just grab the student and help. And the problem is, if that student is not certified in medical translation, what they have grown up speaking may not actually involve macular degeneration or whatever medical terminology and the consequences thereof. And it's similar with the law. Their family might speak the language and might speak English but not understand the consequences. So I would just say, when in doubt, if an interpreter is necessary, don't use family.
We already have forms in place
Mhm.
for throwing English. So
Okay.
if you go outside here, you'll see on the post on the wall,
Mhm.
and notice it says, if you want an interpreter, let us know, and you get one without cost, but it's in English.
So we could get some
So
references in another language that say, we can get you someone to translate this to English. Okay.
I make my opening statements to tell people reading their rights. I tell them you have the right to understand these proceedings, and English is not your language. We'll
Mhm.
get you an interpreter.
Mhm.
But I'm speaking English.
Right.
And so you are
Mhm.
correct, Council. But what we're doing already exceeds
Right.
what the requirements.
I understand, yeah. Yeah, we have to go a bit beyond in Clarkston just because we're special.
Yes.
Yeah, we will have that translated into at least 7 languages.
Very good, very good. All right, so I'll open the floor for a motion on this resolution.
I can do it. I move that we approve the resolution, including the recommendation from Councilwoman Hopkins about having the interpreter sheet translated in the 7 different languages so that people can identify if they need an interpreter.
Very good. All right, motion.
Second.
Second. All right, any discussion? Okay. I wanted to note that the, we got sort of like the notice in, what was it, early December kind of time frame, or late November. It was a week after Thanksgiving, I think. Sort of intonating some sort of litigation from the Southern Center for Human Rights. And so I want to thank the city attorney and the judge and city manager and the council members for being very proactive in responding to it and expediting these concerns, because we were very concerned about the possibility that people were being unjustly, whether it's forced to pay things they couldn't pay, their constitutional rights were being violated, and so we took that very seriously. I think there is a tactic out there in sort of the advocacy world where you just immediately go to the maximal pressure campaign, and it works for some large cities and cities that might be legitimately trying to hide something or to not wanting to make change. But I think clearly in Clarkston, our desire is to have the most fair justice system as possible. And even though a lot of these issues, as we kind of discussed in talking to the solicitor and the public defender, are sort of straightforward and traffic related, and aren't the big cases, they're still really important to the people involved, and they're really big to them. And so it's important that every single person that comes through these doors, because this is the courtroom, is treated fairly and given that opportunity to have translation, to have a fair defense, to receive some compassion, particularly when it comes to payment and avoiding jail. So thank you all for all that many hours of work. I know it took a lot to get that in motion, and here we are, less than 2 months later, acting on it.
Yeah, and I would just add that I worked very cooperatively with the Southern Center for Human Rights. We had a meeting that Mr. Gomez and Mr. Carroll attended, and then in creating this document, they were involved, and my impression is that they're very pleased with Clarkston's response and with this policy.
Okay, very good. All right, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, last item, and this is the one that was amended, and this is related to the settlement agreement with the North American Mission Board of the Southern Baptist Convention. And I'll just, so everyone has that in front of them. We did have a statement that's in the packet here. I'll read that maybe after the end here, but let's recognize Mr. Quinn to just kind of update the public on what we're doing here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So,
thanks, Judge. All right, thanks, Christopher.
At the work session last week, we met in executive session, and without getting into the details of our attorney-client discussion, the council asked me to engage the North American Mission Board in a settlement discussion. And essentially, we have done exactly that, and we have reached an agreement in preliminary agreement subject to the council vote, which would end the litigation between the city and the North American Mission Board. That the North American Mission Board will release the claims that they have still pending, and that the city will relinquish its appeal of the decision made by the trial court, which was basically that they were entitled to demolition permits. I would like to, as the mayor indicated, part of this agreement involves a joint statement, and one of the terms of the agreement is that neither the North American Mission Board nor the city, which includes the individual council members, would make comments about the litigation and the demolition permits other than the mutual statement that is included as the last page here.
Okay, very good. And I'll read the city portion, and I don't know if do we need to read the NAM portion?
I don't know if you need to read it aloud, but I do recommend that all the council members at least confirm that you're comfortable with it.
Okay.
We've been going back and forth until about right when I came over from my office today, and I know that the city's part of this statement you've all seen, but the NAM part is relatively new.
Okay. Everyone read that right now. I'm going to read just the city portion. So just on behalf of the city of Clarkston fought hard to try and preserve 2 historic homes, and we are proud of the courage that the city council showed in doing so. However, we ultimately determined that the law was not on our side in this matter, and that it is now in the best interest of the Clarkston community to give up this fight and focus our efforts and resources on other matters, such as improving infrastructure and revitalizing the city's downtown. It will be a sad day when these buildings come down, but we hope that this settlement can set the foundation for a cooperative relationship with the North American Mission Board moving forward. That's the statement. Council, y'all hopefully have a chance to look at this response from Jake Evans, who is identified as the attorney for North American Mission Board. Any edits or concerns on that one?
No, that's what we agreed on.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question, Quinn. Where they have no choice?
I'm sorry.
Oh, look at Jake Evans' response.
Uh-huh.
What's his name? Had no choice.
Right.
Are they willing to?
I'll say this. This was not their first effort at a statement. This was the outcome of substantial back and forth. So would they be willing to change the statement? I don't know. I think perhaps not necessarily. I think if your question is, did they have any other choices rather than should, or is your question about the statement or about whether
It's
they
about the statement. I want them to modify the no choice. Other language could be used. Other words could be used.
What
I
do
don't
you
know.
suggest?
I'm not an attorney. Queen, that's for you.
Right.
You
But
advise.
that's not a legal.
No choice seems like there were no other
Say
alternatives.
NAM decided to
They
file.
decided to file, right.
Thanks.
They chose to take that action for, et cetera. But they had their attorney write it, not the vice president or president of the
That's right,
organization.
and
I'm a little, just publicly, I'm concerned about that, but that's before we get into approving this.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the kind of thing that I wanted to hear from y'all on. Now, will they be willing to change? I honestly don't know. So if we're comfortable, I shouldn't put it that way. If that change is a material part of what makes you comfortable with the settlement and you're not comfortable without it, then that should be adjusted in any motion to adopt the settlement, in which case I will then take it back to North American Mission Board tomorrow and say this was approved. Do you want to agree to it?
And then the other question I had for you, Stephen, is do you think that the provisions about this being the only statement prevents the council from making statements tonight, kind of explaining their vote and why they do or don't approve of the settlement agreement, or should we just vote and not make any other statement?
Why? I think it's okay to make a statement at the public meeting tonight about why, to explain your vote, which would be different than going to the media later and making a different, and talking about the same thing. I think that you've got that prerogative tonight. Of course, the spirit of our agreement is that neither side is going to disparage the other. So I hope that not you specifically, but that any council members, since this is a public forum, that if you have those kind of thoughts, that you really should not be in favor of this agreement. But as far as explaining why you would be or are not, that's absolutely your prerogative.
Try to keep my disparaging remarks to a minimum then.
Now's the time.
Okay, yeah. Okay, well, I think we could make the motion that just asks for that change, and let's just go with that. And, if they reject that, then I guess we'll just have to come back again.
Or go to the Supreme Court.
Why do we have to change?
Are y'all okay with saying NAM had no choice but to file the lawsuit? Councilman-
They had no choice. Technically, they have no choice. Because we reject. I mean, that's the way I see it.
Well, their choice was to not demolish the buildings.
No, that's their property. They have to. They need it. Yeah. The project has to go on. So they had no choice if they want the project to go on.
That was a decision that they decided to do.
I mean,
Well, look, if it's, I know we didn't have a chance to discuss it beforehand too much, but honestly, if we let's try to get to unanimous vote on this, ideally. So if there's not going to be a unanimous vote on that change, then I would just entertain a motion just to accept this current statement and resolution.
is anybody not accepting this one?
Yeah, anyone here does not want to make the changes? we're okay with the change, then I'll just.
Pardon me again?
Yeah, just so if we're, Councilmember Bell is requesting that we pass this with the stipulation that it says NAM decided to file the lawsuit.
Deleting had no choice and but to, and replacing with decided.
Yeah.
Or it could just say NAM filed.
Yeah.
So I think that's just semantics to me because.
Okay, Deborah, you support.
We're gonna have to go back to them again.
I support the change.
Okay.
So who doesn't support the change?
I don't support the change.
Okay.
You don't support the change. Okay.
Words.
Okay.
Well, the one difficulty is we're not in executive session. This is public, so we can't really negotiate the way that we would otherwise.
But this is the time if you want to make a change to make a change.
This is, yep.
Or not make a change.
So how many people does it take to make the change, or do we have to all agree?
Well, just a majority, really, of the motion, of the body.
What I personally, I don't mind it changing it, but I would really hate to deal with this again and go back and forth just because of one word.
Here's the question.
Let's just.
Contingent upon the changes, right?
I mean,
that would be the offer.
You could always send it back to us by email, so we wouldn't have to have another council meeting this if they send us different wording, right?
Do we need, yeah.
The settlement cannot be effective until it's approved by a public vote of the council. Could we discuss it between now and a future public meeting?
We'd have to vote on it again if we make this change and they don't accept it.
Right. Or just go ahead with the current posture, which is that we're appealing and they have these claims against us waiting at the trial court.
Yeah. In the meantime, we have to be briefing the appeal and things like that.
I don't think that'll come up within the next month, but it definitely could. I mean, I could get that docketing order any time, which then starts a
20-day clock.
20-day clock. Yeah, so theoretically, I could get it tomorrow, and then my brief would be due before our next council meeting.
Okay. You indicated that they've changed their wording a few times, and
so
is this going to be a material change to them? They're not here, I don't think. I don't see them here.
I think potentially. I just what I can say about it is the statement was different than this. We went back and forth several times. They accepted it. So the part that says what Mayor Terry says, they haven't asked to change anything about that. I drafted that. Now, I also drafted a statement for them, which they weren't as accepting of, and we went back and forth and got to this point. So I honestly don't want to predict whether they would let that few words be the difference in the settlement or not.
I have a question on the verbiage on our side of it, though, where it says, however, we ultimately determined the law was not on our side in this matter, and that now is it's not in the best interest of Clarkson community. Can we just leave out that first clause that we determined the law was not on our side and just say, however, now it's in the best interest of the Clarkston community to give up the fight and focus our efforts and resources to other matters?
That's what the mayor's statement is. I mean, are you comfortable with changing it?
Yeah, but Queen wrote it. But I think it gives indication of the reason why we're not going to appeal. Right.
That's why I put it in there. But if there's no, it's not a legal necessity by any means. I mean, this last page, the public statement, I understand why we're focusing on it, and I think we should. But it's not a legal issue.
Right.
Right? And so it can say whatever this group wants it to say.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I would say, okay, that is perfectly legitimate as a statement from Ted Terry, the mayor. But then I would feel like, why do I need to vote on what Ted's saying? That would not be my words at all.
Yeah, we're not voting on that.
Well, we're just saying we're not going to make other statements. Yeah, we're just saying we're not going to make other statements than this. We're not going to go out of this and have a press conference and bash NAM, and they're not going to do that for us.
I understand that. I'm just saying that phrase makes me uncomfortable.
Okay. So you're suggesting that we take out the law was not on our side?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
the law was not on our side? Okay.
And again, it's the same thing. So we have to take it back to them again. Also, again, I don't know. We got to make sure that they might.
Would they care if our statement changed mildly?
I expect that they would not,
Right.
but I can't guarantee that. But I do think, I don't expect them to have an issue with modifying the city's part of the statement.
Do you think they may care if we modify their statement?
Correct. I mean, I'm not saying, again, I can't predict how they would react, but I feel it's more likely that they would take issue with a change to their part of it than that they would take an issue with this change to the city's part of it.
Okay. I do think it would be good if we had a unanimous agreement on this. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to have a unanimous agreement. But I think that was kind of the purpose of our executive session, is to come to consensus. So if we want to delay, I mean, we have the option to, I mean, we can call special call meeting whenever we want. If we want to wordsmith this a little more, we can bring it back up again, next week. Is that still a possibility?
That is true. I mean, there's no legal reason that can't be done. There's no guarantee that if there's a change of any word in here that NAM will still accept it, but there's no guarantee that they won't. And so in the interim, if we were to not vote tonight and have a subsequent meeting, whether special or regular, I would have the opportunity to share the exact language that the council was comfortable with and get feedback in advance. So in this today, we didn't have that opportunity because I didn't get their statement until right before I came here, and I sent it on, but there hasn't been time for people to look at it. Okay. If I have feedback from the council in the future, then I'll take that to them.
Okay. Well, I would. I mean,
Just add this to the agenda. Can we have public comment on this? Is there any way we can actually get some thoughts of the public?
If the council wants to open up public comment, we can definitely do that. But we need to have I'd like to have a vote of that, so I don't interrupt everybody's flow. But I mean, if I'll open the floor for a motion if folks want to open up public comment again.
I make a motion to open public comment on this issue.
Okay.
I second the motion.
Okay. All right. All in favor of opening up public comments? Raise your hand, say aye. 3. Okay. All right, is that 3?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any opposed? Opposed? Okay. All right. All right, so I'll... All right, I'm going to support opening. I'm going to vote in favor of the motion to open up public comments. We'll open up public comment for this item right now, right here, right now.
Mr. Mayor.
Live.
Mr. Mayor, just a question. Are you limited to 3 minutes, the speakers?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I think I have 3 concerns. The rules for putting an item on the agenda at the last minute. We are fairly well aware that whatever occurs by proper procedure at a city council meeting in terms of agenda items have to be, have public notice has to be given there to X days beforehand. So when is the exception when you're allowed to put one on willy-nilly, if I might say, at the last minute? Then the other question is, as the council, and they can be answered after I leave the podium here, is the council being muzzled from bad-mouthing NAM in the future on issues? Because there are several people on the council who are very adept at bad-mouthing NAM, an organization which seriously needs to be bad-mouthed, in my opinion. And then the third thing I had in mind, I can't remember. so I'll still take the rest of my 3 minutes until I remember it. I can't, so Ted made the statement that so they're going to demolish the buildings. I know this is political and not moving political and not so much on this legal matter, but why would they demolish those buildings if they're not going to get a CUP, a conditional use permit, to put soccer fields there? Those are my 3 concerns.
So I think that one question he asked was pertinent to refer to the document. The question is basically, I'll use my own words, to what extent would members of the council be restrained from commenting regarding NAM more generally? And the answer is that they would not be. The agreement states that the city shall refrain from making any public statements regarding the lawsuit, this agreement, or this agreement other than referring to the joint statement attached.
Okay. Osman. Again, back to the... Okay. I think this argument has taken a long time. This property is owned by Sen Relief. And Sen Relief, they have to work wherever they want. They own the place and they want to do their project. So this argument, if you want to take the argument, I think it's not good for this city because it's going back to the court. And that is the way you want to expend this money of City Hall for to pay SU. That is will be fine. Thank you. Let us see that fight how long will take.
Dean Moore, I'm hearing from you that you're not going to appeal this.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Well, we already did appeal. I mean, there is an appeal right now.
There's still an appeal.
The settlement would involve relinquishing that appeal.
Okay. Well, I'm against relinquishing the appeal, but I'm also against having them put words in your mouth that say that tearing down these buildings is in the best interest of the city. That's a ridiculous statement. That it shouldn't be in there. And I haven't read it. I've just, from what you've said and what the mayor read, it's not in the best interest of the city. And for them to dictate to you to be able to say that, or for you to follow through with that is a very submissive position. I'd rather see you continue to appeal and fight this. It is an NR1 property. They should not be allowed to come into the NR1 neighborhood and buy properties for commercial use and tear them down. We're working to do historic preservation for the rest of the NR1 because obviously it sounds like this is not going to be included in the historic preservation district. And for the council to put that kind of statement out that it's positive to tear down our NR1 neighborhoods is counterintuitive to the entire community and the fabric of our community and what we have here is families. And this is basically saying it's okay to go into the families and take out whatever you can, whatever you can get away with, and whatever you can pay somebody for, and then put words in your mouth to say that that's in the best interest of the community. Go ahead and take out a few extra houses here and there. So I think we continue to appeal this personally, and I'm sorry to see this council taking a submissive position.
Susan Hood, just a quick question. I think the language that is being objected to says something about Clarkston realized that the law wasn't in our favor or something to that effect. And I just was wondering if that is in fact a true statement. I would think if we had intention to appeal the decision that perhaps that's not a true statement. If we knew that the law was not in our favor, why would we have moved to appeal it? So I think that would be an important point to determine before the city says something that may not in fact be true.
So I can just say as a lawyer that it's never black or white, or very rarely black and white, as to whether or not the law is in your favor, whether or not an appeal will or will not be successful. So I don't think anyone here can confidently say there's a 100% chance the appeal will succeed or won't succeed. I don't think anyone can even give like a percentage chance that it will or won't succeed, because it's just the law is too uncertain in this area particularly. But I can just say, after having the executive session with a city attorney, that myself and the rest of the council, I think, was convinced that it was very unlikely that our appeal would succeed, and that there are significant downsides to continuing with the appeal, including the possibility of NAM being awarded a huge amount of attorney's fees against the city of Clarkston. And I think that was, at least from my part and from what the other council stated, I believe that that's the part of the logic behind agreeing to the settlement, is because we did not think that ultimately the law would be on our side. We thought going into this lawsuit the law may be on our side, but after getting the trial court ruling, we think that it's unlikely that the appeal would succeed, and there are very negative consequences to continuing with the appeal without a settlement agreement.
Right, and I can certainly understand that, but the statement seems to be a declarative statement that we know the law isn't on our side. Perhaps that just, again, should be taken out, as some of you mentioned, or some different weasel words that doesn't look like we're saying the law isn't on our side, because who knows?
Sorry.
Yeah, can you just address I think there may be a little bit of confusion about the settlement. This settlement is related simply to the demolition of these two structures to get the permits. It has nothing to do with conditional use permitting, has nothing to do with rezoning. This is completely separate. So doing this settlement doesn't mean putting up athletic fields. All right, it's just not that simple. But I can see how you might think it's that way. But there's lots of more steps along the way. For instance, a scenario could be, if there is no conditional use permit, there is no rezoning, it's still single-family residential, and the owner, North American Mission Boards, decides, well, we're just going to sell the property, and it's still single-family residential. So, single-family residential is still that zoning category in those areas, so nothing has changed. The settlement does not change any of those facts.
And
Is that correct?
Everything that the mayor just said is correct in my opinion. And another thing I would add is that if this settlement is consummated, or if the current state of affairs is upheld by the Supreme Court, that would not exclude this property from historic district. It would allow demolition. And the reason that there's a difference there is because historic preservation also dictates what can be built in a historic district and how it has to conform with guidelines, et cetera, which we don't have in place yet, but if and when we do, they could apply to this property.
Okay, thanks. Yes, sir.
Quinn just answered a couple of my questions. But I want to know, was the judge aware that's an R1 when she made her decision? Did she know that was a residential area?
Yes.
Soccer fields. It doesn't seem like she did.
Well, the soccer fields aren't a part of the judge's decision making. What the judge looked at is just this: does the fact that NAM filed its applications before the city council could hold a public meeting to officially adopt its announced demolition moratorium mean legally that NAM is entitled to the demolition permits despite our moratorium? And Judge Berry of the Dekalb Superior Court answered that question, yes.
Even if they realize that if they do tear down the buildings, right, they still can't put up soccer fields. That's what I don't understand their reasoning.
Well,
we're not resolving that tonight.
I mean, I can't speak for NAM on what their reasoning would be. If there's no change in the zoning, then they would just have the same options that are allowed there now and on the other zoned properties with the same zoning.
So you're recommending that they take that settlement?
Yes, I recommended in the executive session that the city accept this settlement.
Thank you.
Yeah, and can you just add further clarity to this? So when you do an appeal to the Supreme Court, state Supreme Court, you know, yes, we're sort of addressing this issue, but there's also the issue of precedent setting. And I think there, you know, was concern from maybe other city attorneys that if the precedent, if this case became precedent, that it could kind of unravel or maybe cause some negative consequences sort of across Georgia. Are you able to talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's true that one potential outcome of our appeal would be a decision by the Georgia Supreme Court that plainly says that property owners have the right to rush in between the announcement of a legislative act and the consummation of that legislative act and basically defeat it as to their property, which is what happened here. And I don't personally like that legal outcome. I don't think that's a good public policy. And like I said, potentially the Georgia Supreme Court could decide that that is Georgia's public policy and announce it through this appeal.
I just want to say that as much as I'm not happy with the Dekalb County's decision, I really feel I definitely want to agree with our city attorney's judgment on this, and we need to just close this chapter and move forward.
I'm wondering what I am allowed to say so far as about the case regarding what was discussed in executive session. There's particular reasons why an appeal would not be promising for us in this case. There's one thing to try to set a precedent with the Georgia Supreme Court, but this particular situation is unique. Am I allowed to say that?
Well, I think what you just said is fine, but
okay.
Please, yeah, let's not give too much details.
Not a great example to take to the Supreme Court to challenge that law. Anytime you take something to the Supreme Court, you want to make sure that that case is a pristine example of the sort of barriers you're trying to break down, and this one just isn't, and we could potentially get stuck with hundreds of thousands of dollars of their legal costs. Millions if they want to take it that far, but yeah.
Should make them an offer, Dean. Find out.
Make them an offer. All right, so you know, I think we've. All right, so we'll close public comment. Back to the wording. So you know, like I mean, I'm totally fine. We can take out the we could say however we determine that
It's now in the best interest.
it's now in the best interest. Yeah, I mean, we can just completely just strike out that whole thing. You know, there's no objections to that.
Yeah, no, because then it doesn't sound like we're taking responsibility. Otherwise, it sounds like, I'm sorry, I made the mistake.
Okay.
For the purpose of making this smoother agreement, I really would definitely agree with Councilmember Laura Hopkins here, but I would not touch their statement. That's just me.
Okay. All right. So let's do it this way because it'll be a little cleaner. Because you know we could spend another hour talking about this. So let's just do this. Let's open the floor for any motions to amend this statement, and we'll just kind of take it from there. If we got a majority, we'll do it. If not, we'll leave it as it is, and we'll just go that way. So I think you have a motion, Laura.
I would like to make a motion to amend the statement to delete the phrase, "the law was not on our side in this matter," and just have the sentence read, "however, we ultimately determine that it is now in the best interest of the Clarkston community to give up this fight and focus our resources on other matters."
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All right. All in favor of making that change in the motion, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Opposed. Okay, so that's, all right, passed. All right, so we're going to make that change. You got that? All right. Open the floor for a motion on any other changes.
I make a motion to amend the statement from NAM to remove no choice, had no choice, to replace with decide or filed.
I second the motion.
All right, any discussion? All right, and just to clarify, Councilman Member, and this would be, or City Attorney, so we would, if we approve this, we would basically say that we will approve this motion pending those changes from the North American Mission Board, and if they reject it, then we're just going to have to come back together again, basically, is what we're left with.
I believe that's exactly right.
Okay, there's no okay, gotcha. All right, all in favor of making that change in the motion, raise your hand, say aye. Oh, wait, 1, 2, 3. Okay, any opposed?
Let's just make you a voting member, okay?
Yeah, right.
It's only every vote that matters he gets. So.
All right, is everyone okay with coming back next week for a special call meeting? No, you're not here. All right, I do agree with Councilman Bell. I would like to ask them to make that change. I think it's a small one, and let's try to work together. Y'all were, the settlement's pretty good for them. So, all right, so I'll vote in favor of the motion. We'll make the change, and you got that.
I do have striking the words "had no choice but" and replacing with "decided."
Decided, or what was the other?
Or they could just say filed.
And be filed this lawsuit.
Okay. Or they could. That'd be their choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Decided to file or filed.
Okay, very good. All right, so let's open the floor, back open for a motion on the settlement agreement. With the current.
I move that we approve the settlement agreement with the 2 amendments to the statements that are attached as Exhibit A to the settlement agreement.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay. All in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Any opposed? Okay. All right. Motion carries 4-2.
Motion carries. And just to clarify, what will happen next is tomorrow morning I will send this to NAM's attorney, informing him that it's been approved by Clarkston, subject to the 2 changes. It'll then be up to him to indicate to me whether NAM accepts the changes, and if so, then I will inform Mr. Gomez to release the public statement. If not, well, obviously I'll inform everyone, but if not, then I'll inform you, and you can either call a special meeting or wait till next work session or whatever. You could have a special meeting in conjunction with the work session, a special meeting before the work session, or just wait till next month.
Okay. Before you step down, so y'all were talking about like 20 days or something. I didn't understand that at all. So if we waited a whole another month, is that going to be an issue?
It's likely not to be, but it's possible that it could be. So what happens is when you appeal a case, then the trial court clerk has to pull all the record of the case together and then transmit that to the Supreme Court in this case. So that used to be literally copying the pages and taking them down there. Now it's electronic, but it still seems to take about the same amount of time, which is, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And so we're entering into that time frame. When that is complete, then the appellate court, in this case the Supreme Court, dockets the case, which starts a trigger for me to file the brief, which is our legal argument in support of our position. The thing about that, obviously, is that you incur attorney's fees. So I think we'll be fine if, not if, because if that happens, I'll immediately inform Mr. Gomez, the mayor and council, and then explain what's the timeline and, do you want to call a special meeting or do you want me to go ahead with the appeal?
Okay, great. we've got options, everyone up here. All right, thank you very much.
Very limited time.
Very limited time.
You'll get that tomorrow.
All right, thank you, Attorney Quinn. All right, well, that concludes our public session. We do have an executive session to discuss a personnel matter, and so we're going to have to ask everyone to leave. This will be the last item. So thank you all for being here for our
Make a
council
motion,
meeting.
sir.
And open the floor for a motion.
Move that we go to an executive session to discuss a personnel matter.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Executive session.
How long will it take you to like send the amendment, the language, the text change to the responses?
Exception of 2 items, and this meeting lasted longer than the work session. Why? And then if you're gonna have a meeting at 7, can we
All right,
please
open the
start?
floor. We're back on the, or we're back in session. That's the end of our agenda.
To adjourn the meeting?
You haven't seen that.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thanks, guys. But yes, time is of the essence. The meeting starts at 7.
We was here.
Not, we didn't start at 7.